Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live broadcast. This is our first broadcast of 2026. It's Friday, the 2nd of January, and thank you guys so much for joining us here into the new year. And I'll tell you what, we are really kicking off the new year with a new bar. What I've got in front of us today that I'm going to share with you, the MS-02, is the highest end mini PC workstation I've ever seen before. Now, I don't know what else MINISFORUM has up their sleeve, but that's a heck of a way to start the year, because otherwise you're setting yourself up if you can't beat this in the weeks and months ahead, or anybody else for that matter. Right out of the gate, we come out strong. So we're going to get to that here shortly, but first I want to thank our friends over at VIP-URCDKEYs. That's where I get my Windows and Microsoft Office license keys. Fully legit, fully legal, nothing unusual, no sidestepping any sort of rules or anything. And I've seen, I mention that because I've seen some keys for sale online where you've got to go through a number of steps that are awfully sketchy and not normal. So there's nothing different about these keys, just so you know. And I back them up 100%. In fact, I've got their website right here. Now, these prices are subject to change depending on what's going on with the trade value of the foreign exchange rate of the currency you're spending versus what their currency is worth, but it's usually just by a few pennies one way or the other. And we have our own coupon code using the word CAREY at checkout. You save an additional 25% if you want to. And of course, if you guys have any questions or anything, just reach out to us. Or if you're having any questions with the site or the products, you just reach out to them. They offer 6 months of free support. And we've been using them now. We've been going on about 3 years with the folks here. And everything is, as far as I can tell, everything is far cheaper than what other people online want that offer this kind of support and guarantee. So anything less expensive is probably rolling the dice, which could work out for you, maybe. When I run a business, I cannot afford to gamble with my business and my livelihood. So I want to make sure I'm getting real legitimate keys that are backed up by the seller. And so, I mean, if you haven't figured it out in 6 months, I think 6 months is a very generous free support window. So there you go. And if you're curious about it and you don't want to take my word, ask people in our chat room. Many of them have purchased keys from this site before, and I'm sure they're more than happy to share their experience with you, just in case you think I'm biased. But I do have a business to run, and in order to do that effectively, I need to sell legal license keys, and I need to make sure that whatever I'm spending my money on that I'm reselling to a customer, I have to have some kind of backup, because I can't afford to just keep replacing things at my cost. And if I don't, I'll probably lose a customer. So I have a lot on the line here, and I just want to share that with you so you can have the same savings I have. I pay those same prices. I enter my own coupon code. Just in case you were wondering, it's no different for me, and that's not a commission-based link, meaning whether you buy it or not, there's no punishment for me and there's no incentive for me to twist your arm. Just sharing a good deal with you guys, and it's available all year, so you're in no hurry to buy it, no pressure, but when you need it, you know where to go if you don't want to mess around. You want it to work right the first time, and know that they've got your back and I've got your back. In such a scenario, for some reason it didn't work, we got you covered either way. All right. So our thanks over to friends over there for extending that offer to all of you. I also have to thank our friends over at MINISFORUM for continuing to support us here by sending us units for review under no contract. Basically, I am free to speak my mind, to do the video when I want, and to be open and honest and critical without any worry of repercussion. I don't have to worry about not getting paid. I don't have to worry about being told to say something or when I can disclose information. Under those circumstances, we turn those deals down. And MINISFORUM has, we've really enjoyed working with them because we've offered some criticism, just with the idea to make the product better, ways I think the product would be better. And never once has that ever been anything other than appreciated from them. So companies like that today that are willing to show that trust in the content creator, I'll tell you what, they're few and far between. And so We really appreciate all the support and the belief in that they have in us, that they continue to trust us to do these reviews early on. There's already a few other content creators that have done the MS-02 or 02, and you know, we're certainly not the first here, but for many of you, this may be the first time you're seeing it, and we'll see if your eyes get as big as mine did when I saw the specifications on this, because this is insane, and I think you'll agree. Let's say hello to everybody joining us in the chat room before we get started here. I hope you all starting a new year off with good vibes and hope for opportunities and happiness this coming year. Alej Depej renews membership, now a member for 36 months. He says, 2026, the year we finally become the best versions of ourselves, or at least try to. Let's go. I wish everybody around the world would agree with that. Absolutely. We can at least try. 2025 felt like a lot of us weren't trying. Sean Skinner, well, joins us, says hello, and there's Dimitri Veneers, who has become back as a supporter. Welcome back in, Dimitri. Thank you for supporting us here. Tony Aindow saying Happy New Year, Uncle Carey, and everyone in the chat. Happy to watch another live video. Thanks for being here. John Lewis saying Happy New Year, along with Andy, W6AD, and of course Marlena, our chat room administrator, our channel administrator. Mark Baggett renews membership, now member 43 months, saying Happy New Year to everyone, and hope everyone has a happy and healthy 2026. Thank you, Mark. Back at you, my friend. David Graham, Jim Kenny, and Michael LaBelle join us and say hello. There's Eddie Casanova, Franz Vatt saying hello, and Neil Garrett, along with the Brian Weber and Neil Poverman, Frank Jimmy, and W.E. Holmes, all joining in, saying hello here in the chat. Philip Jones and Craig Dowler also saying hello, along with Doman 2000. Frank Jimmy wants to say hello to Sable as well. Sable, the stray cat. Thank you, Frank. I'm sure she'll meow right back at you. Ben Laird joining us from Scotland. And Mark Gaines says hello from Northern Ireland, where it's a -3 and snowing. And that sounds like a proper January. We haven't seen one of those in Arizona. Well, not in Phoenix in a long time. Dazzle555 says hello, along with John Rogers and Xander Vanderhoven saying Happy New Year from the Netherlands. Thank you, Xander. Back at you. And Peter Retired saying hello, along with LRCX saying Happy New Year as well. Jonathan Fells renews membership, or comes back to membership. Thank you, Jonathan. Charles Eslick says hello. Laura the Bear joining us, and Jez Hodgkinson saying hello from England. It has to do with the shortages of RAM and storage, or it has to do with the shortages of RAM and storage, or video cards for that matter. I think the interest has been waning. I think if you look at other tech YouTubers and you look at the number of views they're getting on their videos and go back about 2 or 3 years and look how many views they were getting, most of us are cut in half now as far as views go. If you were getting 10,000 views, now you're getting 5,000, like if you averaged it out. I'm not sure why this is happening. However, you know, on the business side of things, business is stronger than ever. There's no shortage of computer purchases and need for computer support. It's quite the opposite. It's busier than ever, especially with security concerns on the business side of things. But YouTube tends to be more attracting home users, and it does seem like home users have kind of gotten over it, or at least half of them have. It was growing, and then kind of. So anyway, besides that, what also seems to be happening is the interest in those purchases to retail are also waning. If you look at brands like Dell and HP, Lenovo, and others, I think there's been a drop off on the consumer side, but a pickup on the business side. So they're selling as many computers as ever, but it's like the percentage of consumers has been taken over by business. So I was like, what's going to happen in 2026 with no new Wi-Fi, really no new networking, not much coming out in the way of any new CPUs from AMD or Intel that are nothing more than refreshes of the previous gen. I'm like, this should be an interesting year. But one thing that kicks the whole year off, where companies might be keeping secrets to announce at a big show, would be the Consumer Electronics Show. And I think that starts Wednesday. I think it's January 6th through the 9th. So it's usually that first week of January. And well, I predict we're just going to see a lot of TVs, a lot of AI related things, and like vacuum robots, other kinds of little robot assistants. I would like to be wrong. I'd like to see some new announcements from Synology. I'd like to see some new announcements from the mini PC makers. I'd like to see some new announcements with tech to be excited over. So I'm reservedly hopeful, and we'll see what comes out of CES this year. We'll keep an eye on it. Anything that sort of attracts my attention, we'll talk about. Anything you see, that attracts your attention, let us know. So that's why I say it's kind of a big deal with this big slowdown to suddenly be introduced to this MS-02 from MINISFORUM, which sets a whole new bar, the likes of which, well, I'm very impressed. You don't hear me say that too often. I'm usually like, yeah, it's good, but let me share with you the MINISFORUM webpage for this so you can see why I'm so excited about it. This thing is spec'd out spectacularly. So let's jump over to the MINISFORUM site. And by the way, the links for everything I'm showing you are in our video notes below the video. Let me jump over here and go to my window capture. There it is. Okay, so this more or less looks like a very similar case design we've seen from MINISFORUM. But don't let the outside fool you. I want you to understand that this price tag here, at first it might seem like a lot for a mini PC, but you're probably going to spend 2 to 3 times that to build the equivalent desktop. Like, it's ridiculously inexpensive for what you're getting. Tell me if you disagree. You can get this with either the Intel Core Ultra 9 285HX, 275HX, or more on the budget side, the Ultra 5. So more like a Core i5, 235. Most mini PCs have 2 SO-DIMM sockets. That's the same kind of RAM laptops take. This one will take 4 of them. And this RAM is cheaper than desktop memory. So there's that. Now, if each one of these can hold 64 gigs and you multiply that times 4, that means our total amount of RAM that this will hold currently, maximum, is 256 gigs of RAM. It's crazy. It's, of course, got PCIe 5 and a by 16 slot that'll hold a dual slot graphics card. It'll have to be low profile, but otherwise, it's ready to go for that. It's got two USB 4 version 2s. And let me just check something here real quick. Let's see. One moment. Sorry about that. Where was I? So 2 USB 4 version 2, 80 gig per second, Type-C USB ports. And we've got, are you sitting down? 2 25 gigabit per second Ethernet ports. Did you hear that correctly? 25 gigabit. Now these are going to be the SFP Plus connectors, and that's only available on the 285HX version only. But in addition to those 2, you get an additional 10 gig Ethernet adapter, and you get an additional 2.5 gig Ethernet adapter, and it's Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. Like it's as if someone at MINISFORUM said, let's just take the best of everything and cram it in this little tiny box. Now, how you can do that and not have heat problems or crowded areas, you know, crowded cases is outstanding. Like I'm not even sure how that's done, but we're going to take a look at it and open it up today. As we scroll down, we've got a little bit more information about just the specifications, right? The CPU, the expandability. They're talking about enterprise grade reliability. What does that mean? It means it's built like a tank is what it means. It also has something called vPro on it, which is the way that most corporations will get access to all of the workstations, the IT department using vPro. And you typically see that on like Dells and HPs and such, the Lenovo's that are designed for corporate use. That's built into this. So whether it's an enthusiast or a business, this has it covered. They talk about their server-grade thermal design. And of course, we already mentioned the dual-slot GPU support. Scrolling down, a little bit about each of the processors they're offering, the 235HX and 275HX at a lower price point. And of course, this is the one everybody wants, right? The 285HX, the beast in the room. Now you can see not a big difference in the Cinebench results between the 285 and the 275. However, you know, depending on what your budget is and if it's important to you to have those additional M.2s. Oh, I didn't even talk about that. This has 4 M.2 slots in it. They're part of the 25 gig Ethernet adapter that's in there, the dual 25 gig, which is not included on the lower end models, obviously, to save money. So as we scroll down and continue to look at the number of slots available, the networking, the weight of it, the Intel vPro support is only on the high end. It is not on the lower end. That's another thing to note if that's important to you. But you still get the USB 4 version 2, and you still get the same Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all the same video output. So yes, this does everything. This does video editing. This does photo editing. This does work. This can do gaming. Well, Intel's built-in graphics aren't exactly the best for that. You just add your own graphics card. This has a built-in power supply with the connectors that you could plug into your graphics card. And as long as it's a low-profile graphics card, no wider than 2 slots, you're good to go. No external GPU dock is needed. Of course, with USB 4, you could still put the USB GPU dock on there if you wanted to, but you'd get a lot more performance if you'd install it directly onto the PCI bus inside of the computer, as well as a much cleaner installation. Looking at the ports on the front, we've got a USB Type A. We have 2 USB 4 version 2, our audio jack and power button on the front. Coming around the back, we've got the Kensington lock, so you can buy a steel cable and lock that bad boy in and tie it down to something so no one will walk off with it if it's in a public area. 3 more USB Type A's. These are 3.2 Gen 2. They're 10 gigs per second. There's your 10 gig port there closest to the top, your 2.5 gig port there below, and then you've got a single HDMI output here. Now this other USB 4, that can be used for power delivery, DisplayPort output, and you have a standard C13 style PC power connector, power cable. Nothing proprietary there. And the power supply, I think they mention here, is, I want to say 320 watts, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me see if we go to view all. Yeah, so video output, you get 1 HDMI that supports 8K at 60 or 4K at 120. You have 1 USB 4 with DisplayPort alt mode, which again is 8K 60 or 4K 120. And then 2 more additional USB 4 ports with DisplayPort. So a total of 4 monitors can be used simultaneously. And I'm just looking for the power supply. 350 watt power supply. And Mara says we've got emails, so we're going to check that here. And then there's your weight, 3.45 kilograms, whatever that means. I'm American. I don't know what that means. It's not heavy, but it definitely has some weight to it. Let's come back over here to camera 1. And back over to the chat room and see if any of your jaws have been picked up off the floor yet. This thing is a beast. The Astro Man says hello from Wisconsin. Charlie Purdy says hello. Mr. B508 joins us and says hello. Scott saying Happy New Year. Welcome in, everybody. Markovsky saying hello. He says, until RAM and storage prices come back to whatever normal is, I think home builds will dry up a lot in 2026. I think many PCs are going to shine. I think people are going to really see the value, especially when you don't have any of the frustrations with home computers with the BIOS updates and compatibility issues, and let alone the pricing. So we'll see if I'm right or not. I don't know, but I just think if many PCs don't take off like a rocket in 2026, I don't know what better preparation, that the world would be ready for that other than 2026. And that may not be something to look down on. It may be a blessing in disguise and the excuse a lot of people need to give it a chance, and then realize in many cases, in many scenarios, not only does it save you money, it's far superior to a desktop in so many ways. But to each their own, and it is what it is. Let's see who else says hello. There's Mark Baggett joining us, and there's also David Herzog, news fan, saying hello. And Brian Weber saying hello. Joshua Glennon joins us. There's a Cronus saying hello. I believe that's Begowden. Happy New Year to Begowden and our friends over at Acronis. And here's to a happy and successful 2026 to each and every one of you. Bajan Guy says hello. Says 3.45 kilograms, about 7.5 pounds. Yeah, that feels about right, 7.5 pounds. Got a little bit of heft. It's not heavy, though. Let's see, Mark Gaines. Oh, we said Mark Gaines said hello already. Let's see, scrolling down. Shout out to our friend Buster, Peter Laycock, who submits an Amazon gift card just prior to the show starting today, and he's going to join us. He'll watch the show probably tomorrow. He's, I think, got an early night tonight, or he's got guests, whatever. We're thinking of you, Buster, and thank you so much for your continued support and your friendship, of course. And then I'll check the email here real quick. Robert Barnes submits an Amazon gift card, and a generous one at that. That's Mr. B508. Thank you so much for your support and your generosity. And he says, here's a little something. Well, let me say the whole thing. Happy New Year to you, Mara, this amazing channel and community. Something to help kick off the new year. And that's Mr. B508 in the chat. Right on. You guys rock. I think that catches us up with that. This unit, I ordered this from Amazon, and I reached out to MINISFORUM. I said, could I get one of these? And they said, well, we don't have them ready yet, other than what's on Amazon, which is bare bones. Now, look, I've been doing this a long time. I have no shortage of RAM and solid state drives here. I'm saying that in January, ask me again in June. So I said, well, I can supply RAM and storage. I got plenty of that. And they said, okay, well, you can get it off Amazon. So we went ahead and made the purchase off Amazon and got it about 2 days later. And I've been drooling over this, waiting desperately to unbox this. It's killing me. I've been wanting to get my hands on this since the day it arrived. But I said, no, I'm going to save this experience for live on camera so you get real reactions. I did look at a couple of videos from other content creators that were evaluating it, so I have an idea of what to expect. I feel pretty confident about what I'm getting into here, and I had not really studied the videos. I kind of skipped through them a bit, so I'm sure there's still going to be some surprises in the box. Now, obviously, we've got the Ultra 9. That should go without saying, right? And this one on the side, and I'm going to show you the Amazon site where you're going to look for this. Yeah, it's the Intel Core Ultra 9 285HX, and it says memory and storage are 0. All right, that means that you've got to provide your own RAM, your own storage, and your own operating system. Hello, URCD keys. If we look over at the website over at Amazon to see how it's being promoted, let me jump back over to my window capture. There is, you see here it says 0 plus 0. That's bare bones. Now they will be getting some MS-02s equipped differently with the different processors here. And you'll see they've got a number of different products on this one Amazon page. So as impressed as I was, and I still am with the MS-8, was it the A2? No, the S1 Max. This thing blows my mind. The MS-02 is sort of the Intel answer to AMD's S1 Max. So I'm leaning more towards Intel myself, but I have no complaints about the S1 Max. I love it. I'm hoping to love the MS-02 even more. Now, notice the S1 Max is $3,650 because it's got 128 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage. Notice the MS-02 bare bones is $14.99 here. And when you look back at the MINISFORUM page, it's a lot cheaper to buy it direct from MINISFORUM, where they've got it listed here at $300 off. So what a bargain, really, $11.99 bare bones. So you're going to put in your own RAM, your own storage, and your own operating system, and you're going to get all this for $1,200. Are you kidding me? That's a third of the price of the MS-S1 Max. So that's why I'm kind of fired up about it. It's not only is it amazing, it's also able to be reasonable on that high-end price point. It's half, less than half what this would cost you if you were going to try and build the desktop equivalent to this. Yeah. And another email. All right, we're going to check that real quick. Oh, our friend Charlie Purdy with an Amazon gift card. And a generous one at that. He goes, this is my super chat for today. Well, Charlie, thank you so much. I'm loving the generosity, guys. You're amazing. Thank you so much. It's folks like that that continue to, with this kind of generosity and support, give us that foundation that we can keep moving forward regardless. If things get really, really slow in the industry, I still have the ability to keep the payments up, to keep the studio running, and hopefully there will be some new exciting things at CES. I just have no idea what they are. And of course, those products often don't come out for a few months after the expo, but at least if something is out there, we can order it. And we still have a couple things coming in that we ordered last year that haven't arrived yet, like the ARC KVM. So yeah, that's a Kickstarter project that I'm really excited about, but that's not going to be till March before that ships. So we have irons in the fire, so to speak. So thank you guys again so much. All right, let me get back over to the chat room here real quick. I do believe this is a 2-year warranty for MINISFORUM and the ability to extend it another year. We talk about, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the future, but this idea of right to repair, I want to touch on this real quick because I feel like people have lost their way. My nephew came out to visit me during the holiday, and he brought with him a couple of laptops, and they both seem to have, well, what could potentially be corrupted BIOSes. And the BIOS chip on these laptops is even smaller than the BIOS chip where I had to get the adapter. So there's another adapter I have to buy. And no matter what I've been trying to do on the other BIOSes, I can't seem to make a good connection. So I thought, okay, I'll buy the hot air gun, and then it's like, okay, once you get that, then you need the flux. And the long story short is that I initially started this project because I thought for $15 I'll try it. It turns out the $15 device I needed is not very good, so I had to buy another one, so another $15. And then I needed an adapter, that was another $20. Not getting a hot air gun, a cheap one for like 30 bucks and some flux for another 6 bucks. And then there's 2 little adapters that are $20 a piece. So once I get the chip off, I don't have to resolder it down. It's just my personal preference. I can set it in a little thing and lock it down. Okay, so at this point now, it becomes cheaper to replace the unit, because even though I'm spending all this money, and I started with replacing the battery in the laptop, that was another $40, and it didn't help. So the laptops are older, and if you go on eBay and see what the equivalent laptop used but in working condition, it's like 300 bucks for one of these laptops. And if you look around at places to get it repaired, labor rates around $130, $140, and if I have to ship it, it's about $40 each way. And that doesn't include parts, but that's a flat rate labor. Like no matter how much time we have to put into it, it's like $140. You pay for the shipping to us, we'll pay, and you have to pay for the shipping back. Like I said, it's about $40. So however long that's gone, and assuming it can be repaired, that doesn't get the battery replaced, right? That's just to get the laptop up and running again. Or I can go on eBay and I can buy a used one, exact same make and model, for $300 and have it in 4 days, and then just keep the broken one for spare parts, I guess, and the next time there's an emergency. Why would I spend $300 when I could replace it for $300 with a complete, having a whole nother set of spare parts on my own as a donor machine if anything future goes wrong with the replacement from eBay? And at that point, we're already looking at an old computer. We're talking about maybe a 10th gen computer. It's only another $200, $300 to get a mini PC with a much more modern processor, unless you really need that laptop. But even the budget laptops on the lower end CPUs run pretty darn near equivalent to the high end CPUs of 5 or 6 years ago. So you might turn your nose up and go, well, that's only an i5. Like, yeah, but it's an i5 from now, not an i5 from 5 years ago. And you compare that i5 today to that 10th gen i7 from 5 or 6 years ago, and you'll find out. It may not be any faster, but it should be just about equal in so many ways. Plus you get the new warranty, new battery, new screen, more vivid. At what point does right to repair really make any sense? And I would say when you're spending $1,000 or more on something and it breaks within the first 5 years. So if you have the ability right out of the gate, if you're spending that kind of money, get the extra warranty, right? So if you got the extra warranty on this, you're good for 3 years. There should be no reason you have any anxiety for 3 years about anything failing, because you're covered. 100%, no matter what, you are covered. When it's an inexpensive budget PC, who cares? Quite frankly, you could just go buy another one for what it would cost you, or possibly less than it would cost you, to send it in for repair. Now, this may change as RAM and storage prices escalate. However, we have to wait and see. There is a break point depending on how old the machine is and what sort of availability there is for that same exact machine on eBay. That, sure, it's in used condition, but otherwise works. And you're going to get it faster. You don't have to worry about whether or not it was fixed correctly or whatever caused the repair. Sometimes repair people misdiagnose and they fix the symptom, but they don't fix the problem. So then you revisit it again, and if it has to be shipped back, you're paying the shipping again. And once you get about $500 into it, you might realize I could have just bought this thing off eBay for 300 bucks, or bought a newer, faster one, brand new under warranty for 500, and gotten it faster and just started over again with everything being brand new. So my personal feeling on this right to repair is, yes, at a certain price point that becomes important, but until you reach that price point, it doesn't make financial sense to do it yourself. In fact, some of the tools required to do the repairs are quite an investment. So if you're only fixing the one you've got and it's cheap, and you're just like, I'm going to fix it myself, and you have that skill, you might end up like me. How much of an investment now do I have with these adapters and special cables, just to flash this BIOS that I initially started because it's only $15. I'll give it a shot. Well, okay, I have to spend another $15, and now I have to spend another $20, and oh, now I need these adapters and this hot air solder gun, and now I really want to see it through. So how much more is still ahead of me to spend? Now, if you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. But if you're not planning to do this for a living, when will you ever use those tools again? Then it becomes cheaper to just take it somewhere. Just let somebody else who already has the tools and the experience work on it. They can likely get it back to you much better than you're going to do it if you have no experience at it. They have the experience. They have the tools. They know how to use the tools. So the turnaround time should be faster. It should be more likely done right the first time without any potential damage happening as a result that those of us learning might cause in the process of learning. So set your expectations accordingly. And listen, if you really enjoy that, if you bought the tools and you learned how to use them and you fixed your machine, you should consider offering that service in your neighborhood to others that might want to pay you to do their repairs. However, for it to be worth your time, they might just tell you for what it's going to cost between your labor and whatever any parts are that are needed that you're going to charge them, plus the amount of time they have to wait. Why don't they just go and buy a new one? So you're not only hearing it from me, but if you decide to do it for a living, you're likely going to hear it from customers for machines under $1,000 that are already 4 or 5 years old, with some exceptions. So it's just something to keep in mind. At some point, right to repair absolutely does matter, but until you reach that point, it's disposable. So something like this, we're going to have a lot of money in it. We have that, option to get that extra year of warranty. I would get it if peace of mind was important to you. But with that being said, I haven't had a single MINISFORUM computer ever fail on me. Not yet. That's been my personal experience. We've been through a lot of them. I like the quality coming out of MINISFORUM. And I like the novel products that they create that are unlike anybody else. No competitor has anything like this. And in fact, so far as I can tell, no competitor has had anything like the MS-01 or the MS-A1 or A2 or the X1. They're just so unique that even months later or even a year later, 2 years later, the competitors clearly are steering clear of that. So MINISFORUM has some very unique solutions in a market filled with a bunch of clones that I find very attractive, and they're affordable, and they're well built. And we've been working with them now for years. So we have an established history and experience of product quality and reliability and support when needed. That's just been my experience. So if I sound like I'm selling this, I can't help myself. I genuinely love their products, and I genuinely can't wait to get my hands on this. So without further ado, let's get to some unboxing. I want to make I clearly have a bias, but I'm not getting paid for that bias. I'm allowed to feel how I feel.
You're not.
I'm not allowed?
No, you're not allowed.
Do we have another email?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, good timing.
I'm starting to wear a patch.
You don't need a Stairmaster machine. You just go up and down the actual stairs.
You need to wear the patch.
I don't have anything in my email. Oh, wait. Mark Gaines?
Yes.
Ah, there he is.
There you go.
Our friend Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland says, Carey, hope you enjoy this gift card. Happy New Year. Here's my contribution in lieu of Super Chat. I received a new LCD screen from Corsair on his all-in-one cooler, and his problem has been solved. Well, that's great. They didn't have to send you a whole new cooler. This is now your 3rd or 4th attempt at getting this whole thing running. So hopefully it stays fixed this time, and keep us up to date with how that progresses into 2026. It's very unusual to have to go through the amount of returns. And not only Mark Gaines, but Luke Greenia, our friend here in the chat as well, with the same cooler, same problems, also had a replacement. And I don't know if they got a bad batch or what's going on. Or it wasn't Corsair. It was Leon Lee for Luke Greenia and Corsair for Mark Gaines. But they were both liquid coolers and both had issues. So anyway, we'll follow up with that in the chat. Appreciate the update. And let's hope it stays fixed. By the way, never a problem you'd have on a mini PC. You would have never gone through any of this. So the liquid coolers on mini PC. Neil Garrett says, sounds like my tools in the garage I don't use anymore, right? Boss says, I think the point of right to repair is to leave the cost decision to the consumer rather than have companies create roadblocks and monopolies. Well, but the question that I have, is that a hill worth dying for? In other words, or dying on. If you buy a product and it's a very inexpensive product and you got nothing but time on your hands, where most of the world doesn't, should they accommodate the minority? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few kind of thing? Or would it be in your own best interest and the company's best interest to say, look, all this documentation and all these spare parts are going to cost more money because of the amount of time that has to go into it? I can see it from both sides. There may be somebody that says, I got all day and nothing to do and I want to take this apart. Well, nobody's stopping you from taking it apart. You can absolutely take apart anything you want. It's yours. But what if I want to get parts? Well, I don't know that parts were ever guaranteed. And even if they were, you run into a situation that we've talked about here before, when computer manufacturers like Dell were making computers, and still might to some extent, but primarily they were making computers with proprietary power supplies and things. Then you had no choice but to buy that particular proprietary component from the manufacturer with no competitor. So let's say that's a $20, $30 price for a power supply normally. And Dell says, we want $125 for it. And Dell's the only one who makes it. Dell has a patent on it. Nobody can clone it without getting sued. And you go, well, geez, for that much money, you know, plus you have to wait to order it, wait for it to come in, your machine's down the whole time. I could just buy a new one. This is the way the game works in, at least, you know, from what I've observed with regards to capitalism. They go, oh, is that what you want? You want to be able to buy spare parts, do you? Okay, we'll let you buy spare parts, and they'll mark it up 3 times more than what those spare parts would cost if they were generic parts. But they've made enough change to that part that they can patent it and copyright that design. So if anybody else comes out with it, they can go after them in court for theft of their intellectual property. So they're saying, okay, we met your requirement. You can go buy these parts. And you're going to say those parts are too much money. Well, go buy another one, right? Just go buy a brand new one. One way or another, you know, they've got some pretty smart marketing and lawyers that understand the law in a way that none of us here can really see the little game that's being played, where they can accommodate meeting the law, but at the same time, still get what they want by just twisting it a little bit. Now, you can sit there and argue or fight about it, but if this was that important to you, you shouldn't be buying products from a company who does that. So I put it on the consumer to do your research to understand if you're dealing with a company that does not support right to repair, then why are you buying their products? You can't tell a company how to run. If it's your company, you run it how you want to. And if you got a consumer that doesn't like it, you tell the consumer to take a walk. Who cares? So what you've got to keep in mind is where is your place in this chain? Are you a big buyer? Are you buying 10,000 units at a go multiple times a year? Are you buying 1 unit every few years? And how loud is your voice? So a little tiny voice coming out in the corner that's barely, you know, you can barely even hear it saying, this isn't fair. I would say to that voice, you made a really bad purchasing decision and you only have yourself to blame. If that was important to you, you should have made sure you bought a product from a company that meets your values, not try to change a company because you're angry and powerless over the fact that you made a bad decision when you purchased it. So I want to put the mirror up and say, how much of this is the consumer's fault? Instead of playing victim, you made a bad choice. Why don't we admit we made a bad choice for us? It didn't meet my values. That's my fault. I won't make the same mistake again, and never buy from that manufacturer. Now, if enough people do that, and there's enough people that share values like you don't have to go to Congress and you don't have to pass any laws. The market will resolve itself in capitalism, where the company will have to shift their business tactics in order to make any money. Should that become a cultural phenomenon that people start embracing, the company will have no choice but to respond or go out of business. But going online and complaining about it might make you feel good for your therapy. It doesn't really change anything. So just have proper expectations and make better decisions, and make sure that you understand what you're buying before you buy it so that you're not disappointed. That's what I do here. I'm not telling you whether or not you should buy one of these. I never do that. I just say, here's what it is, here's what it costs, here's what I personally think of it, whether or not I like it personally. You decide if it fits your values, your budget, your needs, your wants, your desire. I don't know you. I don't know what you want. So I'm not making a commission on it if you buy it. If you buy it, great. Actually, if you buy it from Amazon, I do make a small commission, but nothing I'm getting rich from. I'm here to just be open and transparent with you, the same as I am to my customers. Now, if my customers said to me, I should have the right to repair what you're selling me, why am I doing business with that customer? Like, you're hiring me to repair things for you. That's what my job is. So, or to resolve a problem, whatever that is. It could be configuration, it may not be a repair, or it could be just a complete upgrade and replacement as we measure cost and time, right? And if people wanted to do that themselves, I probably wouldn't be talking to them ever. So this whole right to repair thing, it's very niche. And I'm not saying I'm against it or I'm for it. I think there are scenarios where it makes sense. But I think there are also a lot of scenarios where financially it makes no sense, and you should be careful what you ask for, because if you get it, you might find out you got exactly what you asked for, and all you're doing is you're saying, if I want to eat poison, I should be allowed to eat poison. And if I have to finance that poison, the poison's way more money than healthy food, then I should be able to make that decision. Well, nobody's stopping you. I'm just saying, there's nobody stopping you from that. So, you could get 2 identical units and provide your own parts. You can do that right now. So just keep that in mind. You've always had the right to repair in that regard, unless there's DRM involved, which is, again, that's a whole nother story. But in this case, I'm just talking about just regular repair. I'm not even talking about the DRM. I am 100% opposed to DRM. Okay, just so we're clear on that. Mark Gaines says Luke Renia does have an RMA on his Corsair all-in-one. So you both had Leon Lees and you both got rid of, returned those, and then you both got Corsairs? You guys are following similar paths? Oystein from Norway joins us, says Happy New Year. Welcome in, Oystein. Good to see you. And Dennis joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Dennis. Mark Ofsky says, yeah, Carey, a lot of truth in that. Capitalism has its own built-in policing. Yeah, when the public has had enough, the company needs to be able to stay in business. They're going to have to respond. But if it's just you and a group of your friends that all agree, but the rest of society doesn't, you're just wasting your time. It's best for you to just accept, where your place in the market is as a consumer, and just make choices from other manufacturers that align with your values. I think that's the the path of least resistance that causes the least amount of stress, that has the greatest chance of getting what you want. And then everybody's happy. PSC Computer says Happy New Year's, joins us in the chat. Welcome in. Now, does anybody have any questions about the MS-02 before we get started? Jim Kenny said, let's open up this bad boy. I'm savoring it. Mark Gain says, I still have the Leon Lee HydroShift all-in-one cooler. It's in Project Zero. Oh, okay, so, you know, I forget. People have more, many people have more than one computer. Paul Connolly joins us, says Happy New Year. Yeah, if I recall, Mark Gaines had an issue with the Leon Lee fan controller in the Corsair RGB controller not communicating, and then there were 2 different pieces of software, and he wanted it all to run on one piece of software to simplify it, which meant on the Corsair side, make everything Corsair. Then you just have to run the IQ software, and then take the working Leon Lee cooler, move that out into a different system where it didn't have that whole sort of Corsair pre-installed fan controllers and such. If I recall, that was the reasoning why Mark Gaines has gone through this process. Feel free to correct me if I'm missing something there, but I think that's how we got to this point. And those coolers are close to about $300 or more a piece, so that's kind of an expensive lesson. But hey, you know, hobbies aren't cheap. Oh, so Mark had the Trikes all-in-one initially. Okay, and then the Leon Lee was used in a different build, and now he's got the Corsair. He's got a lot of coolers. There's no one cooler than Mark Gaines. All right, shall we do our unboxing? This is the MS-02 from MINISFORUM, and this is my first experience with it live on camera and unscripted. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so right out of the gate, we've got clearly the PC here and some accessories in this box here. It's packed with the face facing up, and somewhere there should be a seam. Oh, here we go. Oh, that is glued down. We have some silica packets in there. I think most people just tear it open, but I don't know. I feel like this deserves a little bit more of a delicate touch. Yeah, it feels about 8 pounds. So actually it's a little bit smaller than I thought it was going to be. It's got rubber feet on the bottom and rubber feet underneath, so you can set it down like this on your desk, or you can set it up on its side. So either way, it's got rubber feet, it won't scratch the desk. If we turn it around this way, whoops, did I just hit a button? Hold on a minute. Let's go back there. If we turn it around this way, you'll see we have all of the ports back here. And you'll see this is an add-in card. Those are the 225 gigabit SFP plus networking ports. And that card also holds 2 NVMe drives in it. That's why the cheaper versions of this, they just don't include that card. And there may be a lane issue there with how many lanes those other CPUs can have data traveling through. I'm not sure if it's a physical limitation or if it's just a cost-cutting measure. But again, if you're going to go with the 25 gig, you really want the Ultra 9. And the idea that we could put, I want you to think about this. We can have those 4 64 gig SODIMMs for a total of 256 gigs of RAM, and with 4 NVMe drives. And right now, about the maximum size you can buy would be 8 terabytes. So if money were no object, 8, 16, 24, 32 terabytes of storage with 256 gigs of RAM and 25 gig networking and USB 4 version 2 at 80 gigabits per second. I mean, if your jaw isn't on the floor right now, that's an incredible upgrade path. Now, personally, I wouldn't put that much storage in a machine, on any machine, unless it was a NAS. I'd like to have one big storage that I can use here on projects, and once those projects are done, move them off to a NAS where they're backed up, and then there's also access to them from other computers. Putting all your eggs in one basket, I think, is not a good idea. But as much RAM as you want to put in there, that's fine, because that just potentially helps your processing power. That's my perspective on that. All right, let's see what's in the accessory box. So remember, no external power supply. So my first thought was, why is this so light? Oh yeah, it's already got the power supply built in. I'm a big fan of that. And the reason for that is oftentimes I can't get the cable length I need to plug it in, to plug the power adapter in and then have it reach to where on the desk where the mini PC is. With this, it's just a standard PC power cable that's in the box. It looks like we've got some M.2 screws there. We've got this piece of tape here. I think what this is for is if you put a low profile graphics card in there, you place this on top against the seam to force the air to go one way. This is like a weather stripping, if you will, is the best way I can explain it, even though it has nothing to do with weather. It has to do with directing the air. Because it's such a small case, we don't want the hot air from the video card just going wherever it wants to go, and this helps force the air in the proper direction. We've got some thermal pads and rubber bands for additional NVMe drives. We've got, of course, documentation. We've got an HDMI cable. We have some kind of tool removal that looks like a keycap puller. I'm not sure what that's used for, but it's probably explained in the documentation. And then there's just this little filler piece here, I guess just so the box reaches the same height. That kind of confused me because it looked like there was something in there. So with that, that is the complete bare bones kit. So for us to get this to work, we have to put RAM and storage and an operating system on it. So first of all, I don't think we're going to need any of this right now. So I'm going to just pop it in back in the box now that we see everything that's included. I don't know if I'll need the thermal pads or the M.2 screws. I won't be putting a graphics card in here. I'm not a gamer, and I don't have any need for that expense. But you could easily double the price of this by adding a graphic card to it. It's a pretty major expense that well, I would personally, the way I use this, I would rather have much more processing power, more storage than having a GPU. The built-in GPU is great for video editing, photo editing, unless you're doing some really high-end stuff. But if you're doing high-end stuff, you're probably making better money than I am, and you could probably afford to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on a graphics card. So I'm removing, there's 2 thumb screws back here. And you notice I didn't need a screwdriver to take those out. And I'm going to set those right here. And then I think this should lift off. There we go. Wow, that is a solid case. And this is where all the magic happens. I guess I lost one of my little SFP dust covers there when I had it upside down. All right, so obviously power supply. This card right here, this is the SFP plus 25 gig Ethernet that also has 2 additional NVMEs inside of it. You'd have to take that out, open it up, and put your NVMe in there. Where do the RAM and the other NVMEs go? Well, on this side here, and I'm not sure how well the camera's picking this up. Let me go back over here. We have our Wi-Fi card, very easily accessible. We have an M.2 slot here. We have a RAM slot here and a RAM slot here. And if you look over here, there's another NVMe. So NVMe here, NVMe there. Right there, right there. DIMM 1, DIMM 2. Turn this over, and the power supply does have an additional cable hanging out for your GPU. And that's just a single 8-pin, well, 6 plus 2. You've got your 2 slots inside, a by 16 and the, what is that, a by 4, by 8? I have to look at the documentation on that. Now this cover, these are designed in a way, if you notice there's a fan here. So these are designed for the airflow to be contained within this area so that it, you know, on this side of it here, you'll see there is a little bit of opening because air has to come in. But once it comes in, they want to lock it in and force it out only one way. This is what's going to keep the machine cool. So when you look just on this 1/3 of it, we've got the 25 gig card, which again has 2 NVMe in there that are completely empty right now. And we've got the power supply. So really the whole computer, when you think about it, is only about 2/3 of this. Now, you know, if we didn't need accessories and things, the RAM, the other 2 RAM modules, I believe are on this side. So what you would do is take these 2 screws out, and then you could get down this way into getting to the RAM modules. You can take this out to get into the other 2 NVMe. So if you really want to, you know, set this thing up and max it out, it does require a little bit of disassembly. But for what we're doing today, I don't think it matters which NVMe or DIMM slots we use, but we're going to find out for sure. So what I'm going to do is I've got some DDR5 here, SODIMM memory from Team Group. I've labeled it at 64 gigs, so there's 2 sticks of 32. And that's what I've got on hand. If I had 4 sticks of 64, I'd throw it in there just for the fun of it. But realistically, most people aren't even using 32 gig. So if you've got 32 gig now, it's probably more than you're even ever using, at least today. Now if I take this one out and see if we can put it right in here. Like so. There's one, so that's 16 gigs. We'll take the other one out, and it's going to go the opposite way, facing it, like a mirror image. I just set that in like so, and just press it down, locks in place. Now, this does support Gen 5 NVMe. However, I don't have any Gen 5 drives laying around, but I do have a pretty nice Samsung 990 Pro that's 4 terabytes. And here's the question. Would you rather have a small storage device that was 15,000 megabytes per second read speed in 2 terabytes? Or would you rather have 8 terabytes and a 7,400 megabyte per second read speed? I would rather have 2 to 3 times the storage at half the speed, me personally, because the speed only matters inside the computer. Unless you've got the 25 gig system set up, your slow points are going to be getting the data in and getting the data out. Once it's inside, you know, to me, how fast the drive is, once you exceed 5,000 megabytes a second, I feel like you're never going to notice it. It's just milliseconds. But you are going to notice the difference between 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes or 4 terabytes of storage. You're more likely going to notice that for sure. So for me personally, I can't speak for you, I will take a bigger amount of storage at a slower speed. That's an easy decision for me because I will use the storage. I may not necessarily even notice the speed. So it wasn't important for me to go out and get a Gen 5 drive for this because honestly, aside from the benchmarks, I'm never going to see the difference. So let me grab my screwdriver here. So these additional 2 screws, these are for the other 2 NVMe drives that are part of the 25 gig card. And then they gave us 4 thermal pads. Wait a minute, is there 4 or is there 2? There's 2 thermal pads and 2 heat sinks. So I think all of this is intended for the 25 gig card for those NVMe's. So because they're enclosed, you want to keep those much cooler. These are wide open here. And I think I'm just going to use this one right here because again, it's just easy to access and it shouldn't matter which one we use. And we can look at the specs again to see if they're all Gen 5, Gen 4. There might be a mixture, but we're using Gen 4 regardless, so it shouldn't matter in that regard since it's all backwards compatible. Now this came out of a different system a while back, and I do believe I've erased it, so we'll see if it boots into Windows. It shouldn't. If I did my job properly, this would have been securely erased before it was put back on the shelf, but I just want to put that out there just in case. Now I could just as easily move this over to this other slot here. I don't really think it matters. And again, we could look at the specs of the slots at the speeds. I think they're both Gen 5, but I could be mistaken. And if we go back to the product page and take another look at it, I'm sure it specifies that. But it's easy enough to move it. If for any reason this isn't at least Gen 4, I could just move it to the other slot. So that's why I'm not worried about, you know, verifying that right this second. I'm way too anxious to get this fired up and get the OS installed. And then we'll go over to MINISFORUM's website where we can download the drivers, and we should be good to go. So I don't have to put this back in the case right now. If I want to leave it out, I can, but I kind of feel like it might be embarrassing it, you know, having it exposed like this. So we'll go ahead and give it some modesty, and we'll put the cover back on. Now, it's easy enough to take the cover off and on if we find out the RAM is incompatible, or, you know, I haven't used this RAM in a long time. In all of the transport from Studio B to Studio A, something could get damaged. But I have no reason to believe this RAM shouldn't work, so I feel pretty confident. Let's just put it back together. In fact, I'll leave the thumb screws out just in case we have to get back in there. And so anytime I put this on its back to work on it, these little dust covers on the SFP ports here come out, but that's not a big deal. It's just a little rubber plug. Or you could just, you know, take them out entirely and not even deal with them. I don't really have a problem with dust getting in the plugs. I'm a little baffled why when I buy HDMI and DisplayPort cables, they have little dust covers on them. I've never once had to like blow the dust off of one to get it to work, no matter how old it is. But it's an industry-wide thing they do. All right, let's get this plugged in, turned on, and see what it can do. So I'm going to grab my HDMI cable. And we just have the one HDMI back here. I need a keyboard and a mouse, so let me grab that right over here. Like so. Ooh, I'm excited. I don't have any USB 2s on this, do I? I hate to waste a USB 3 on a keyboard or mouse, but that's all right. It looks like I got plenty of USBs here to go around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 USB ports. That'll be enough. Now I'm not going to plug it into the network because we want to wait till after we have Windows 11 installed. We want to make sure the RAM and storage and everything are all good, and this thing posts and boots. We'll get Windows 11 installed, get the drivers installed, then actually probably to get the drivers, we'll have to plug it into the network. So after Windows is installed, then we'll plug it into the network, or we can go on Wi-Fi, your choice. And then finally, we have this power supply back here. I want to make sure the switch is in the off position. That's going to be a 0, and the on position looks like a 1. So if you're curious what the little diagrams on the switches mean, that's pretty much universal code on electronics today. So let me grab power cable. And let's plug that in right here. Okay. Power switch to on position now. Now what I'm going to do, move this out of the way. I'm going to put this output on the screen here. And what I'm going to do is take my video and just kind of bring it down like so you guys can see both things happening at the same time. Here we go. The beginning of a beautiful friendship starts now. Blue light came on. We're off to a good start. Now, when we go through our first boot, it's going to take a minute for the system to train the RAM that we just plugged in there. So I want you to be patient and give it a good 2 to 3 minutes on any brand new computer, not just this one, for a very first time boot up, especially if you've just changed RAM or upgraded RAM. Even in an existing computer, you might be used to it booting really, really quickly, and then you think something's wrong, when in fact the system has to train what new components have been added. And this is particularly important with RAM. It's very sensitive to that. So hopefully we're going to get a power on self-test. We'll see the MINISFORUM logo here, and you'll see how long that takes. It won't take this long again. It's just during the training process. Now, if I clean this NVMe drive off, it should not be booting. Perfect. It takes us to the traditional MINISFORUM BIOS. So we're off to the races, right? We've got our 64 gigs of RAM and a 4 terabyte Gen 4 Samsung 990. And this is not my Windows 11. Here's my Windows 11 installation media that I made free from Microsoft using a tool called Rufus. If you don't know how to do that, we have videos walking you through that whole process. It's completely free. It's all legal. I'm going to plug this into any USB port back here. And we'll give that just a second. And I'm going to select boot here on the screen. And now the only bootable device is that flash drive, that Windows 11 installation media. Oh, your PC needs to be repaired. Let's enter to try again. F8 for startup settings. Let's try this one more time. So I'm wondering if I did blank out that NVMe drive. So give me just a second. We'll restart it one more time, and let's see if it brings the BIOS back up or if it tries to load Windows. Because I was assuming the only thing you could boot to was the flash drive. Peter VZ with a €1 super chat. Thank you, Peter, joining us from the Netherlands. We'll see if this, we'll try again here. Markovsky says, I know with the MSO1, I used one of the NVMe ports and it was handicapped for speed. Only the main port ran full speed. Yes, that's correct. Depending on what CPU you've got and how many lanes it has, it's a restriction on how MINISFORUM decides they want to divide the lanes. So if you didn't have 10 gig networking, maybe you'd have more lanes for the NVMe. There's a sacrifice that's made. And that's why I think on this one, I think it's got enough lanes that everything's at least Gen 4, but I'd have to go back and look just to be sure. I don't know why I'm not getting any video on this, so I'm going to just turn it off right now, and we're going to try one more time here, see if I have any better luck. So flip the switch to the power supply back on, forcing a complete reset. And I expect we're going to get the same MINISFORUM post like we did before. And again, yes, the NVMe slot I have selected, I don't know what speed it is. I'm too anxious, and I'll be happy to get it up and running. Moving the NVMe to another slot won't require any reinstall. You just physically power off the machine, unplug it, move the NVMe wherever you want it, plug it back in, and everything should still work the same. Only if there is a speed difference and your NVMe supports that, then you'll see that. But it's a very easy thing to move. It doesn't require a lot of work or any redos of installs or drivers. Shamim Kejviras joins us, says Happy New Year. Thank you, Shamim. Back at you. And he says he likes that MINISFORUM BIOS interface. Once again, it's something unique to MINISFORUM, and I agree. So hopefully, I'm going to see a post here. I don't expect it to take this long, quite honestly. So when I notice things change after I've done something different, my first thought is the last thing I did is what's having the issue or causing the problem. And what was the last thing I did is I plugged this flash drive in. So could there be an incompatibility with the flash drive, or could the flash drive be corrupt? Or is it the USB port that I plugged the flash drive in? Any of that's possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this back off just to alleviate or to help identify the problem, the source of the problem. And so I'm going to plug this in over here instead, just to get it away from my keyboard and mouse. So we'll plug that in here, and then turn the power supply back on, and then we'll hit the power button, and let's see if I have better luck. And Mara says we've got an email. Thank you, Mara. While we're waiting, I'll check email. Oh, Nick Caffrey sends $25 PayPal. He says, thanks, Carey and Mara, for all you do. It is appreciated. Right on. Thank you, Nick. That I wasn't expecting. So let me unplug my HDMI plug cable, plug it back in, just to see if I'm having an HDMI connection issue. And bear in mind, I do have other kits of RAM. If there's some kind of a RAM compatibility issue, that's also possible. MINISFORUM makes these machines so solid, I tend to think it's something I did versus, having a bad unit. I wouldn't immediately jump to, oh my gosh, something's wrong with the unit. When you do a bare bones build, it's really on you to make sure you're using compatible parts. And the first place I would double check when having a problem with a new machine is, again, I'm going to look in the mirror and say, what have I done that could have caused it? So by simply taking the USB drive out, because remember, until I put this USB drive in, we appeared to be just fine. So let me try and verify that by removing this USB drive, we consistently do get a regular power on self-test. If so, that tells me something's going on here. Now these are SanDisk, these are a brand name USB flash drive. They don't typically have any sort of compatibility problems. However, they still can go corrupt from time to time. And sometimes when that happens, you simply need to format and start over with a new, fresh install media. If it's free, it's easy to do. It's not necessarily indicative of anything wrong with the drive itself. We don't see that too often, and I doubt that's the case. I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm having a RAM compatibility issue here. It doesn't explain the lack of consistency in the response we're getting from the video output here. So I am a little bit puzzled why I'm not getting, well, consistency. So there it goes. Now I see it there. So for the sake of experimentation, I want to plug this in. I also want you to keep in mind, I'm not plugging into a monitor, I'm plugging into a capture card. And we have seen where certain computer video outputs don't talk to the capture card really well. That could be part of what we're seeing with that lack of consistency. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't really know. So let's see if we have any better luck now. We're going to go to, let me get rid of camera 1 here for a second so I can see the whole screen. Okay, the boot menu. Not a boot menu. Boot setup. Let's go UE. Boot options. Yeah, it's not showing the flash drive. Okay. What is it? Escape. Setup. That takes us into the BIOS. We can also look for a new BIOS version. I mean, we're show 1.03. It's a pretty new machine. I don't know that they would have a new BIOS out as they just released the machine, but we can check. It does see the 64 gigs of memory, so it doesn't look like we're having any sort of a memory problem, but we still could be. And if we go to the boot menu, saying boot option NVMe, let's just change this to USB device first, just to see what it does. I will have to come back and change that again, but that's all right. We'll save changes and exit. I just want to see firsthand that we are definitely booting or making an attempt to boot off the USB. I really should have just, last night, I should have taken that NVMe drive and ensured that it was wiped clean. I forgot. I think it's wiped clean. And now I'm not sure if when we're trying that boot up, if it's trying to boot from the NVMe or it's trying to boot from the flash drive. So this is kind of forcing it, you know, boot from the flash drive, and let's see what it does. Shamim Keshver is now a member for 31 months, says, Dear Carey and community, Happy New Year. I wish all achieve all of your goals and be happier. I've been away since I moved to a new house and I am assembling lots of IKEA furniture and hugs. Hey, enjoy the new home, man. That's great. And new furniture. It's a nice way to start off the new year with a lot of new things. All right, so, you know, by now it should have done something. And it does seem like there's something about this flash drive it is not liking. So I'm going to go ahead and force it off one more time. We'll give that a second and turn it back on. This is why I do these videos live, because I want you to see when you're watching other videos where they can edit and control the output, they can control the outcome, it may give you a false sense of what you should experience. Now, the unique drive selection and RAM selection are probably unique to this particular build, because that's what I had laying around. The odds that you're going to be using the same RAM and storage configuration are very unlikely. And because of the variety of RAM and storage options that are available to you, if you decide to do this bare bones, you have to understand that this is potentially a risk. And what's interesting is watching how the video is coming through, like what you see on the screen there. And I can't tell if that's a capture card issue with this video output, or actually I can switch over to USB-C video output. I'm going to just give it a minute. It seems like it's trying to do something here. And that usually kind of points me to a bad cable or a cable that's not plugged in all the way. But when I take the flash drive out, it seems like it's happier. That's very unusual. But I have a USB-C to HDMI. Let's just try one of the USB-C ports. These are USB 4 ports that are Type-C that support DisplayPort out, which also means that an adapter to HDMI works equally. So we're going to then turn the unit back off, let that sit off for a second. And even though it sees the RAM, the thing about RAM is it can be a little tricky in that it appears to work when in fact there's a compatibility issue with the machine. And that's oftentimes what BIOS updates do, is they improve compatibility with other manufacturers. So going out the gate, if you want to do this bare bones, there will be a list of tested memory
that MINISFORUM has said, look, we've tested this. We know these brands and models of memory work. Other brands and memory models we haven't tested. They might or might not work. We don't know. So if you don't want to run that gamble or take that risk, be sure you look at the qualified vendor list for the RAM. And so now our video output's coming out of the USB Type-C. And I'm just curious if that makes any difference. Because if it's a problem with the capture card, that would certainly explain what we're seeing. And the fact that this recovery option comes up suggests it's coming from the flash drive, that something's wrong with my install media. Now that's the only install media I have, so perhaps it's gotten corrupted, or perhaps it's the memory being incompatible. And what's happening is the system sees the memory, but when we load things into the memory, the data gets jumbled, or at least partially jumbled. So there's a few ways you diagnose this. One will be memtest86, just to see what it does, but that can take a while to run. The other thing is, if you have other memory, just swap it out, see if it makes any difference. So I'm trying to do something as quickly as possible because we're live, and running memtest86 is a slow process. Even though, you know, if it shows up errors right away, I feel pretty confident I need to change the memory out. And it may be that the memory is perfectly fine, but there's an incompatibility with the BIOS. So one of the things I want to check before I go any further is just see if there is a new BIOS for this. So let's jump over to MINISFORUM's website. And my window capture right there. Let's go to support. And we want, I guess this is support for buying products. Let me go up here and just search for MINISFORUM support. Okay, there's the support center right there. And drivers and downloads. We have MS-01, MS-A1. MINISFORUM makes a lot of different mini PCs, as you can clearly see. I'm probably doing this the hard way. Maybe we could just search for it. MS-02. Let's try that. There it is. All right, let's look at drivers and downloads. The latest BIOS is what we have, 1.03. There's the driver package. We're going to need it anyway, so we might as well just go ahead and grab it now. And it says download is in progress, and it's about 2.5 gigs worth of drivers. While we're doing that, let's go ahead and, I find it hard to believe that I'm having a problem with my Windows Media flash drive, but it won't hurt to recreate it. So we're going to open another browser window, and we're going to type in download Windows 11. Just in case you missed my video showing how to do this, we're going to create Windows 11 installation media, but I don't want to use Microsoft to do that. I want to use Rufus because I can disable the requirement of an online account and such by default. So I'll go over here and download the ISO image instead. So I want Windows 11, it's my only choice, and hit confirm. It's probably going to ask me what region in the world I'm at so that it configures according to those regional laws. And of course, I'm in the United States, which is right here, English United States versus English International. And then I'll hit confirm. And then this will generate a one-time use download link. Right here, 64-bit download. So we're going to go ahead and grab that right now. And we'll see that there's a little number 2 up here that it's downloading 2 things. That Windows 11 image is about a little over 7 gigs in size. It's going to take us a minute while we download it. While we're waiting, let's go ahead and grab Rufus. So I'll just type RUFUS. And one of the first links that appears should be the free Rufus tool. This is from Ireland. Creator of Rufus is in Ireland. So the .ie knows you're getting to the real thing. We'll hit Rufus, the main link. This is a very small portable download. You don't have to install it. I realize they sell, not sell, this is all free. Don't be buying it. There's a portable version here, but it's really the same. Notice the size is all the same. So yeah, we're just gonna do this first one right here. And that should change to a 3. Unless it already did it. Yeah, it's so fast. It's just a 2 meg. It's under 2 megs. It's very tiny. And so we're going to just recreate the Windows 11 installation media off of the streaming computer. And if we continue to have a problem with it, that suggests to me I'm probably having a memory incompatibility issue here. And I do have other memory to try. So while we're waiting on that, let me get back over to our chat room and see if there's any questions or anything I've missed. Dennis is asking, is the UEFI set to disallow USB boot? Not that I'm aware of. In most cases, at least in my experience, oh, let me go. Why not full screen? No, I'm full screen. In my experience, if you just leave the BIOS alone, just stay out of it, the way it ships from the factory is the way you're going to want it. Now, if you're buying it used, if you're buying it refurbished perhaps, if you're getting it off eBay or Facebook Marketplace, I would reset the BIOS back to defaults, save it and exit, and leave it alone. There's no reason you should have to go and look for these little nuances unless somebody changed them. The factory doesn't want unnecessary support calls, right? If they're going to have a support call, it costs them money. And that doesn't mean mistakes don't get made where potentially a BIOS went out with an incorrect setting. But I have yet to actually see that. Apart from the voltage issues on the desktop boards with Intel, which is still happening, I've not seen where anybody is required to go into a BIOS to make something work that's brand new. Usually that's how they break it. And then they call support because of something they did they shouldn't have done. So in general, my rule is you should be staying out of the BIOS unless it's a used computer. It should be left alone. Andy says, thank you for reminding me of my own BIOS update. I'll be doing that later. Terrell mentions if Secure Boot is turned on, it won't boot from a USB either. Oh, that's a good point. Secure Boot can prevent it from booting, and Secure Boot may be turned on in the BIOS, except, and I want you to think about this, it didn't have any way to tie Secure Boot to an original drive. So unless the drive I put in there, I didn't wipe out, and it's got a Secure Boot key that's not matching the BIOS, there are scenarios where that could be a thing, and disabling Secure Boot is something we can do. I don't think it'll make any difference, but I've been wrong before, and it's definitely worth checking. Mark mentions if there's 4 RAM slots, maybe there's a slot priority like in a desktop. Mark, I think you'll find there really is no such thing as a slot priority. There is performance priority, in other words, being optimal, but you can take a RAM stick, a single RAM stick, and plug it into any 4 slots on any board and it works fine. The question is, see, the problem we run into is there's so many, and I'm just going to say nerdy people online that will look at the technical specifications and tell you that analytically, when we look at the diagram, that the most efficient path for your data to run for the best possible performance and potentially even for the best cooling is if you're running one RAM module to put it into slot 3 or whatever it is, okay? That keeps it away from the CPU. The slot nearest to the CPU is going to get hotter. Then the length of wiring between where the DIMM is and how far the data has to transfer may be closer when using one RAM module in a particular slot. But we're dealing in such, again, I want to just call it really nerdy minutia, and I would encourage you to test this for yourself. There's probably not a human on the planet that can tell you which slot the RAM is in based on the performance of the computer unless you're looking at benchmarks. It's so minor and so insignificant as to be purely optional. But if you want to follow the recommended guidelines, you will put it into the recommended slot. But it is an option, and it is never required. So whether or not there's a slot priority here, it is likely not going to be on the add-in card, simply because they make 2 other versions of this that don't include that add-in card. Well, actually, the add-in card doesn't have any memory slots. The add-in card has the NVMe slots. I stand corrected there. All versions of this should have the 4 memory sockets, now that I think about it. The add-in card is what gives us the 2 additional NVMe and the 25 gig that the 2 lesser models don't include. So I gotta talk it out. Bear with me, I'll get there. Let's see. Tim Davern says, thanks for steering me to Acronis to replicate an NVMe drive. It worked perfectly going from 2 to 4 terabyte. Yeah, I mean, why work harder? Acronis has always worked well for me in that regard, and it's my go-to tool for that. I haven't needed it much, but it's very good at what it does. But if it's something you don't need, it doesn't really matter how good it is. But I haven't stopped using it. I just don't use it as often because that kind of upgrade is just less frequent. In the chat, they say they've read the MINISFORUM blog, and it says, important when using 2 DIMM modules, use the 2 DIMMs on the front, the CPU facing slots. If you only install in the rear, the system will not boot. Well, I mean, sometimes it's important to read the documentation. Gerald Cochran said most modern PC only have specific slots for RAM is with servers. Oh, that might be true. I don't really work on servers, so yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'll tell you what, if in fact MINISFORUM has made that exception, then we've just verified that that's not technical nerdy information, but in fact it does make a difference, and that would explain a lot. I was trying to not have to tear this apart to get to the RAM, but it does make the video more interesting, right, to show how this comes apart. This is where haste makes waste. I'm so anxious to get it up and running. I wanted to take the path of least resistance to get it installed quickly. So that's on me, but this is how we learn. And by the way, if I wasn't making this video and showing it, how else would we know? So I'm going to stand behind what I did here because I believe I'm replicating what most home users do, and that is you tear it out of the box, anxiously awaiting getting it booted up. I'll read the directions later. But then something happens and it's like, all right, I guess I got to go read the documentation. This wouldn't be a problem if we only had 2 slots, right? Any other mini PC, this would never be an issue. So if that's the case, it's something to consider where you go, wow, this thing has 4 memory slots. Well, that also may mean that the process of which slots to be used is now a little bit more complicated than on any other typical mini PC, that you would never be in this scenario. So let's see. Martin Aronson says slots 2 and 4 counted from the CPU give the best signal integrity. The other slots have more signal reflection. So that's that nerdy stuff I was talking about. But if in fact it makes such a big difference to whether or not the machine will boot, well, that's not so nerdy. Now that's more practical. Like, do you want it to work? Whether or not there's signal reflections or not really ultimately has to do with integrity and performance. But if it were negating performance and negating integrity to a diminishing level that was going to make the system discouraging to use, they wouldn't have included it. So it's got to be good enough, right, that most users wouldn't tell the difference. But if the system internally is prioritizing those 2 slots that we didn't use as the main memory, that's where things can absolutely, it's technically possible that there is a preferential treatment on that, because we're looking at something with 4 memory sockets that I've never seen anything like that before. It's sort of, there's obviously the opportunity that new rules will exist for this. And my hope was that the ones easiest to access would have been prioritized. But, you know, this is how we learn, and this is how we know what is the nerdy stuff versus what really matters. And in this case, I believe that. I believe that is a blog post. I haven't seen it, but there very well could be a scenario, because I have nothing to compare this to, where those two memory modules have to be populated first or the system may not boot. The idea that this would have gone corrupt or is incompatible with this unit seems highly unlikely to me. So I'm going to go with what makes the most sense, even though I'm still guessing, but I'm using an educated guess based on my own experience. So what I'm going to do is just unplug everything here temporarily. Let's go ahead and move the RAM over just to see. We're waiting on the downloads anyway. So set that over here. Yeah, this was just super easy to get to. So we're going to pop that one out. And this isn't that hard to do. I was just being lazy. All right, so now to get to this RAM on this side, we're going to want to remove these two screws, lift this out. And I think they're right under there, but let's just find out together. Once again, they have all the documentation online to read. And, you know, no harm in reading the documentation. I've done so many computers in the last, you know, we're on year 35 of me doing this, that I kind of feel like no matter how much they change it, it's still kind of the same. But you do sometimes run into some unique idiosyncrasies between certain machines that are a little more finicky. That does, you know, end up being resolved through reading documentation. But I do like to just use my experience and follow through my expectations from what I've experienced in the past. I want to pay particular attention to how this piece of, it's like cardboard or plastic, goes underneath this lip, and then it goes against the rear fan back here without getting in the way of this cable. That's going to be important when we put it back together. Looks like the back comes up first. Move that aside. And that's our power supply cable. We have a big heatsink right here. And let's see, how do we get that out? It looks like we have a screw right here that's attached to like a bar that goes onto this. Let's see if I can get you a better close up. Goes onto this heatsink. Screws right there. There's probably a screw in the opposite corner that I can't quite see. Yeah, there's a fan cable covering it, I think. Well, let's start taking it apart and see. So right there, I'm going to go right there, and I want to take this heatsink off. The RAM appears to go underneath this heatsink. Okay, and now the other side of this, how does that come out? It looks like the other side of the heatsink has a screw below this 25 gig add-in card. So as much as I'm trying to be lazy and not disassemble it, you can understand why I was trying to avoid this just for the sake of trying to keep life easier. It looks like we have to take the 25 gig card out, which means there'll be a little slot cover right here that I'm going to take off. That exposes the screw that holds this card in, just like it would on a desktop computer. They just have a little cover over it. And this is no big deal. I'm really kind of whining about nothing here. Oh no, I have to take 2 to 3 screws out. I hear it. I can hear myself. All right. So we take that out. Now I want you to notice there's a cover over this. And when we open this cover up, that's where the two other NVMe drives will go. And we don't have to put this back in if we're not going to use it. But I want you to notice inside we have another PCIe slot. So you've got that PCIe slot, that PCIe slot, and that PCIe slot. You've got 3 PCIe slots in here. Okay, so the screw that I'm looking for is actually behind the power supply, but that card would still be in the way of lifting this heatsink out. And don't get me wrong, I am glad to have the heatsink. I'm going to just temporarily put that screw right there so I don't lose it. Just put it right there. And we're going to take this one out right here. Okay. These screws all appear to be the same size, so it doesn't matter if I mix them up. And you'll see we've got a power cable here going to this fan. So we absolutely want to make sure that we're clearing that. Now here's what's interesting. Because this is bare bones, it still has tape on the thermal pads. Now why does that matter? Well, here's the deal. See all that tape? You notice this one right here? Do you know what that's for? That is for a chip that's soldered onto the board that is located right there, that square chip. So I have no idea why MINISFORUM left this tape on. Had I known that, I would say at the very least, regardless if I was going to use these 2 RAM sockets that I just exposed, and they're stacked, one here and one there, you'd say, well, if I'm not putting RAM on that side and I'm putting it on the other, I don't need to remove this tape. But you definitely have to remove this tape, or this isn't going to work very well to keep that soldered on chip that you've got cool. So I'm going to raise a point up to MINISFORUM about that. Now MINISFORUM might say, well, you're supposed to be putting the RAM in on this side first, so you'd be taking this off anyway. But still, I don't see any benefit to covering that. That has to come off regardless. So we're going to go ahead and remove this thermal tape here. And this is just to help keep your RAM cool. This film that's on the thermal tape is what I meant to say, is what we're taking off. So now that looks like that. Then I'll take the RAM and we'll pop one in down here. It is a tight fit, by the way, to get your hands down in there. You know, the other side is much easier to access. But let's pop that in. Okay, so there's my one module in there, and I'll just click that in. It's a little difficult for me to do this and show you, so bear with me here for a second. I want to make sure it's fully seated, and then when I press down, it should just lock in. Now we're going to add the one that goes just above it, so they're kind of stepped like a staircase, slightly offset and above, and that's why there's a different height difference on these thermal pads. And we'll put that one in there. Now remember, if I had waited in MINISFORUM, it sent me one with RAM and storage already in it, I would have no need to remove any thermal, well, the film on the thermal tape. It would already be done at the factory, and the RAM would already be installed here, so I wouldn't have to do this additional work. Something else I just noticed is when I took this out, it took out the standoff with it. That's interesting. I wonder if that was just put in too tight. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I don't want to put it back in that way. I feel like, you know, this should go in as a normal standoff. And this is the best time for me to correct it. and it feels like it may have been cross-thread at the factory, or it's just really tight. So let me see what I can do to loosen this. Yeah, it's just really tight. Because the other side, I can see the same standoff on the other screw, and it stayed attached to the board like you'd think it would. So this appears to have just not been tightened down enough at the factory. So that's going to go in this corner, and I'm sure I have a bit for this. This is a different size than the 5mm standoffs we're accustomed to. And I am sure I have a bit for that somewhere. Just check my toolkit. Not going to be this one. No, definitely not that one. Give me a second while I kind of go through some of my tools here. That is a different size. Now, I could use those same pliers and tighten it down if I really wanted to, but I'd really prefer to use, you know, a socket where I have more control over just how tight I'm making it. Let me think, what did I do with those sockets? I have a whole series of sockets. And while we're live, of course, I'm trying to locate them now. I haven't needed them in a very long time. Oh, you know what? This has some sockets in it. Maybe we'll get lucky. Let's see. This is a toolkit I got from Harbor Freight Tools a long time ago. And ignore the dust. It's been a while. Does this have sockets in it? Maybe not. This has a lot of security bits and extensions, but no, not unless, just by coincidence, we're lucky. No, that's definitely not going to be it. Well, that was wishful thinking. I do have a proper socket set. Oh, Carey, where did you put it? You know, it may be in this drawer. I gotta get down here and look in there. What did I do with it? Actually, I've got about 2 or 3 of them. But there's a big one I've got that I know has the most variety of sockets in it. And that's the one I'm looking for. And it's, you know, pretty good size. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time finding it. Where did I put it? Well, I'll tell you what, I do have a nut driver set. And this is something I picked up on Amazon a while back. And I'll bet you one of these will fit just fine. So I just have to figure out what I did with the, there it is. Perfect. That is a, are you kidding me? It's a 5mm? Can't be 5mm. 5 is the standard size we use on custom builds when we do towers. Are you telling me this whole time my regular? Can't be right. No. That's a 5mm. It's a lot more narrow. This doesn't make any sense, but I don't care. It's definitely the right socket. Oh, it's a 6mm. It's not a 5. It's a 6. That explains everything. All right. So what I want to do is just get this started. And for me to get down that far in there, maybe I can kind of come in through this little window. No, I just, well, maybe. Perfect. I just got a couple little twists off of it. I won't need these anymore, so I'll put these back. But this little guy here, that's what I normally use on motherboards. And we can use the same tool. Put it right down in here. Ooh, I kind of feel like I'm not getting it in there straight. Take it back out. I don't want to cross thread it. It does feel like it needs a bit of an extension, that the handle is kind of pushing it to the side. So I do have extensions. and I may end up putting one on there. So for all of these reasons and more, I think it's pretty obvious why I decided to try the back first, because it was so much easier to get to. This will also be one of those one and done things. I don't think you should be doing this maybe more than once or twice in your entire ownership of the thing. But it sure would be nice if it were a little bit easier. I will say this should not have come off, right? What I'm having to deal with right now is it just wasn't tightened well enough at the factory. So what happened was they apparently tightened the screw on top of it tighter than this was tightened onto the motherboard. And so when unscrewing it, it just kept going and going and going. And I thought it must be a captive screw. Well, no, it's because the whole thing came out. Now on the other side, it stayed in. So that one was torqued properly. It happens, you know. I was going to grab that extension. Let's see. You know what could work? You see, these are hex head bits, so in theory, I should be able to just use my regular screwdriver, and that should give me the narrow space I need to get into that corner without the handle hitting like this one does. Ah, it's good to have tools, man. The right tool for the job makes such a big difference. All right, let me see if I can get that standoff started one more time. And I don't have the biggest hands in the world, and I'm having a hard time getting into this corner. And this isn't going to be magnetized, is it? So I can't really have anything hold it in for me while I try and get it aligned, but I'll try it. I think I got it. Oh, it's definitely not cross-threading this time. Nice and easy. Have that go in there. Starting to feel it tighten up a little bit. And I want that extra tight. Don't crack the motherboard. Don't over-tighten it. I can't stress enough how that's going to give you a really bad day. All right, now let me make sure I keep all my bits straight. So that goes back on my yellow driver. And then this one will go back in the nut driver holder here. And I think I'm going to just keep these in the drawer because that's where I thought they were. So I'll put them in there now. The next time I look for them, that'll be the first place I look, just like this time. So I have to outsmart myself. All right, now we should be able to place this back on. So I want to, again, be very cautious of the fan cable. We don't want to pinch it. And in fact, if we want to, we can simply remove it for right now. Get this piece back aligned. And again, it is a very tight fit in here. The good news is the fan cable, it probably would have made my life a little easier to just go ahead and remove that before taking, I took it off and kind of tried to tuck it out away from the cable, but where the cable plugs in is fully exposed regardless if this piece is in or not. It doesn't block it in any way. So yeah, I kind of did that the hard way. But again, we have a unique design. I've not seen this before, so I'm figuring it out and sharing with you what I'm learning. So if you decide to get one of these, you don't have to go through this learning experience. You'll have your own learning experience for something we didn't do, right? You won't make the same mistakes I make. You'll make the mistakes I didn't make. Something like that. All right, so just these two screws go back down. And I mean, that's easy enough. Wow, that screw went in a lot further. It kind of was real squishy. I can see how maybe that standoff, that screw would be over tightened and take the standoff out. That makes sense with how different that went in. But we don't need it that tight. So the idea is that we want a nice secure fitting that's not going to vibrate loose. That gives us a nice connection between those thermal pads and the RAM below. So with that, let me go ahead and plug the fan header back in for the cooler. which again, it's a very tight space to work in. And if you have a pair of needle nose pliers or something, I think that would make the job a lot easier. The problem with using the tool is I can't really feel the connection click into place. So I just want to feel it with my hand and make sure that I fully seated it. Yeah, so it doesn't fit in really tight. It does click. It absolutely does click in there, but it's very easy to pop that off. That's either a good thing or not, depending on how you choose to see that. I've certainly seen people break these when they're too tight and they're trying to get them off, and they'll pull them by the wires and they'll yank the wires right out. This one isn't all that tight. There it goes. I felt that click in that time. Okay, so in theory now, I've done everything correctly. Interesting twist on that cable. That's our power supply cable going to the motherboard power. That connector right there, plugging in up here. Let's grab, this piece can go back in, so let me take that screw back out because I didn't want to confuse it with the others. I mean, in theory, we could leave this out for right now, but there it goes. That is seated. Let me get the screw in here so it doesn't move on me. And then that little cover goes back on like this. And this cable, for whatever reason, they've got it sort of turned and wrapped here. And then this cover can go back on. And again, this is really just controlling airflow. And that one went on this way with this cable under, like this. I believe that's how that went on. Just trying to understand how that doesn't hit the fan. So that piece went underneath this plastic piece, if you recall. And then this piece should fit right up against the edge. And these cables should be accessible through this little cutout. That's what I'm guessing. Because this piece is going to, more or less seal against the plastic of the case, or the metal of the case here, so that we don't have the air leaking out, instead of moving efficiently for moving that air over everything so it gets nice and cool. All right, so I need to hold that in place, it seems. It wants to, it's a pretty tight fit wedged between the two sides of the case. And then the screws will actually align it properly. So one there. These absolutely do not have to be tight. You just want to make sure they fit in there snug. Don't overdo it. And now we're back in business. Let's try this one more time. Let's go ahead and leave the cover off of it just to do things that are different. This is going to be our power button right down there. And let's see, we'll grab the mouse and keyboard. We'll plug that in. And I'll grab the power cable and my HDMI cable. Now again, I'm going to take the adapter off of this, little USB adapter. And we'll plug right into the HDMI port to see if any of that had to do with being in those other RAM sockets. I got to know now. Does this explain it? So I'll turn power on back here. Again, we want to be real careful with everything exposed. It's open to static and such. Let's go ahead and hit the button. And we got some lights coming on. Let me jump over to this HDMI output. And let's see if anything happens here. It is going to have to retrain the memory again. In fact, let me go ahead and put camera 1 back in the corner like I did last time. Just like this. Make sure all the fans are turning, that we get everything plugged back in again. Oh, I hear the fans ramping up. It's doing something. Now the fan's quieted back down. Now it's darn near silent. Oh, so it may be setting memory timings and restarting. I don't know, but it's a good sign. And remember, if the RAM I'm using has a compatibility problem, it means I got to take it back apart again and use different RAM. This would be one of the potential downsides of a bare bones system, is if you're not using compatible components. Now that can likely be addressed in BIOS updates, so that if you're not one of the first people to buy it when it comes out, you're less likely going to have this problem later if there's any particular popular brand models that this isn't compatible with that they address in future BIOS updates. You would just have the latest BIOS update and never experience it. On the other hand, like, I'm getting no video output from this so far, and I'm thinking, uh-oh. I do have to be patient. I do have a lot of anxiousness about this because this is such a beast. I can't wait to get it up and running. And that is not helpful. It's more helpful if I wasn't like so emotionally excited about it and I just treated it like any old everyday computer. My mental state would be a little bit more relaxed and I wouldn't be so delicate with it as I am right now. A lot of times you'll see me slap parts around, but not with something like this. I don't have that confidence in this. So, nor would I on anything brand new that I was excited about, like the level of excitement I'm feeling now. And, you know, this is not promising that we've waited this long. We still have a power light, but we're getting no video output out of this so far. So I want to give this maybe just a little bit longer just to give it an opportunity to, you know, get that RAM trained. And other than that, it may be just a simple matter of changing the RAM to just something else. It may be just a compatibility issue. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, right? We've had such good consistency of quality from MINISFORUM. And one of the benefits, if you order this with the RAM and storage already in it, is this no longer becomes a possibility for you to have to figure out. On the other hand, you know, it might be worth it for you and you might enjoy the process. Normally, I enjoy these puzzles. And if this was an older computer I was working on, I would probably feel, hey, this is a fun puzzle. This is a brand new workstation of a beast of a machine, and I'm so excited to see it work. I might be making some very basic errors here through my enthusiasm. So I'm sooner going to blame me than I am at MINISFORUM at this point, just simply because historically we haven't really had any issues with MINISFORUM. So here's the other thing I want to do. I want to try the USB to HDMI output just to see if it makes any difference, and try turning it on one more time, only because I'm curious if there is a potential HDMI output to the capture card that's giving me some grief. So I'm going to power this off. Oh, just as I powered it off, you saw that, right? Let me turn this back on, and let me plug in my Windows 11. We'll plug it in right here. Now let's turn it back on. Okay, let's see if this works any better. So then the question is then, if I plug this directly into a monitor instead of a capture card, does the display work out just fine? And is it an incompatibility between the HDMI port and the capture card? Because you can see a very big difference now that we see the MINISFORUM logo right away. And let's see if this loads without giving us errors. And that would indicate the RAM is okay, and that in fact it was in the wrong slot. So my appreciation to the chat room there for pointing that out to me. I don't think we got this far before. So yeah, apparently that matters. The RAM modules, I think we verified, have to be plugged in to those slots up at the top here. Okay, well, now we know for sure. It's not conjecture. It's not ritualized or superstition. We verified that by mistake, but it still counts. All right, let me turn off camera 1 here for a second so we can see the whole screen. And we'll do our standard Windows 11 installer. Of course, we're going to wipe everything out on this NVMe drive. We're going to say I don't have a product key right now. And I want Windows 11 Pro on this bad boy. Next. Accept. Okay, and so the disk 1 is our USB media drive, and clearly there was nothing wrong with it. Disk 0, I did wipe it clean. See, I was a good boy. It was securely erased. It's a 4 terabyte drive that's like brand new out of the box condition. There's no format or anything on it. And that's exactly what we want when doing a clean install of Windows. So this verifies we're going to format that drive and partition it as Windows requires it, and then install Windows on it. We're just verifying that. And this whole thing should happen pretty quickly. A Windows install doesn't take very long anymore. Phew! In the meantime, I was able to download the drivers we're going to need next anyway. So I'm sure those have already downloaded. And in fact, while we're waiting, I can go ahead and just copy those off onto another flash drive. I keep a spare flash drive around for just such an occasion. And I'll plug it into the streamer over here and extract those files. Actually, I guess I don't have to extract the files. I'll just copy the whole zip file over, and then it'll be faster to just copy the zip file and extract it over here. So let me go to my downloads directory, and yeah, there's my MS-02 drivers file. I'll hit copy, go to my USB drive, and hit paste. Now this is a cheap USB drive. It's pretty slow compared to what I'm using to install Windows. It's only moving the data probably about 10 megabytes a second, and that's okay. We got time. It's only a 2.5 gig file anyway, so it may take a couple minutes. On a faster flash drive, it'd probably take 20 seconds. So bear in mind when you're buying a flash drive, what speed of drive you're buying, because the price will be more expensive for a faster flash drive. The price may also be more expensive for a larger capacity. And if you want larger capacity and fast, then the price goes up even more. And then pay attention to which USB port you're plugging that flash drive into, because machines often have multiple speed ports. One port might be USB 2, another may be a variation of USB 3 that could vary from 3 different speeds, from 5 gig to 10 to 20. So it's important you plug, if it's important to you to buy a fast flash drive, then pay attention to which USB port you're plugging it into to get that speed out of it. So in my case, I just have a cheap flash drive. It doesn't really matter where I plug it into, because the choke point is the flash drive itself. And you know, for things like BIOS flashing and little utilities, maybe making a boot disk with memtest, something like that, you don't need an expensive flash drive. But for installing Windows, it can make a pretty big difference in how long it takes. Now that means I'm likely going to have to go in and undo that BIOS boot option preference, because it's likely, because I changed it and I should have left it alone, it's going to try and run Windows Setup again, I believe. Let's see if it comes up with Windows Setup, which I believe it will. So this is why I tell you, stay out of the BIOS. You're probably going to make everything worse if it's a brand new machine. And if you're not quite sure, just load the defaults rather than manipulate individual items. And that's why I advise that. It looks like you started an upgrade and booted from installation media if you want to continue. So this is an option because I'm telling the machine to boot to the flash drive first. If there's no flash drive to boot from, then it'll boot to the NVMe second. Now it'll boot to the NVMe drive, and we don't need the media installer anymore. It's copied everything over to finish the install. This can go back in the drawer. And it was fine the whole time. The RAM was fine the whole time. Secure boot options were fine the whole time. All of this is like a little bit of overthinking, but all is legitimate possibilities. But I try to narrow down to what's the most likely possibilities and start there. What's most likely? Because there's a big difference between what's likely and what's possible. And I always want to start from my own experience, what I believe to be, and I could be wrong, but I'll start with what I believe from my experience is the most likely cause. And initially I thought what RAM slots we use probably won't matter, but then in the chat room when it was mentioned, there's a blog post that says you have to use those too. Then when I thought about it, it makes sense because I don't have any experience with something that uses 4 SO-DIMM sockets. This is the first time I've ever seen that. So the thing that attracts me to MINISFORUM is also the same thing that'll end up biting me in the butt, because I have to remember when MINISFORUM is doing things differently than what I'm used to, and my experience doesn't necessarily apply because they're doing it differently. And part of the reason I like MINISFORUM so much is they do so much differently, not specifically this scenario, but let's just say the overall design of this whole unit, its package and everything it's equipped with. There's nothing else on the market like it. But there's the flip side, which means, well, you're also going to have some experiences you never had before. And to carry forward other experiences might still be applying, and other times, as in this example, don't apply here. It's time to adapt to the computer and embrace those changes that I found so attractive. This is a part of that. So that's on me. NY Renal MD with a $5 super chat says, I received my replacement Nemo Ryzen AI 395 system on December 31st. Everything looks great so far. It's a great company. Happy New Year, PC builder community. I really appreciate you followed up with us on it. We've had, in our experience, great experience with Nemo support. And for those of you who weren't following along on those earlier broadcasts, when we reviewed the Nemo, it's got a performance button where you push the button and it changes to like different performance modes. And his button was broken. And he opened it and looked, and it was physically broken, like something happened in shipping. And he didn't really want to send it back. And I'm like, you really do need to send it back. He's like, yeah, but the machine's great, and I found a software alternative to using the button. It's a brand new machine. Nemo has great support. You're going to own this thing for many, many years. That's no way to start. Mistakes happen. Give them an opportunity to fix it for you. And you'll be so glad you made that little bit of sacrifice to live without it a couple days while it got replaced. And now it's yours indefinitely. And I'm glad Nemo expedited that for you. It took care of it. And it should last you many, many years of happiness. But don't keep a broken computer is all I'm saying. When it's brand new, you've got 30 days, or in Nemo's case, 90 days to return it. Plus you have your warranty. So I wouldn't dilly-dally on it. If you notice something right away, take care of it right away. And yeah, you're going to say, well, gosh, I really want to use it. I don't want to go without it. Go without it for a couple days now, so you don't have to go out without it for a couple of months later. That's the way I see it. So I'm glad you did that, and I appreciate that you followed up with us on it. Let me get back over here real quick. Let me go full screen over here. and go through the out-of-box experience. So United States, yes. US keyboard, no secondary keyboard. Don't have internet right now. That'll let me create the local account. I'll put in user, enter, blank password. So we go right to the desktop every time we boot. We're going to keep location on, so that's going to set our date and time, as well as keep it updated. So as the clock naturally loses or gains minutes, or there's daylight saving time or anything else, it'll just keep adjusting that for us, so we don't have to go into the BIOS and we don't have to make any changes like this was 1995. I really love where this new tech is going and strongly encourage you all to don't fight against it. It's so much better here in the future. All right, let me go back to camera 1 and we'll wait for this to finish. Then I can plug it into, no, you know what I'm going to do before I plug it into the network? I'm going to go ahead and copy off the zip file of the drivers that I was just copying over here. Let me see how that's progressed. It should be done. Yeah, looks like it finished. Perfect. So I'm going to grab that off the back of this streaming computer. This has our drivers. Once again, if you order this with RAM and storage already in it, it will already have Windows, it will already have a Windows license, and it will already have all the drivers pre-installed. But if you prefer to save the money and use any of your RAM you've got laying around, or maybe you want to buy your own RAM, I thought one of the benefits of building this as a bare bones unit was something we didn't cover very often on this channel. It's nice to just take it out of the box, plug it in, and start using it. On the other hand, it costs more money. So if you already have RAM, or you believe you can get it cheaper or faster, you have your reasons, then let's show you, since this is a legitimate way to purchase this as bare bones, and if you should decide to go that route, I want you to be prepared for what you're going to need to do. It's not better or worse, it's just different, and we don't get much opportunity to showcase this. And I thought, what a great excuse, right? They don't have it already prepared with RAM and storage. So if I want to do this sooner rather than later and make this video content, you know, as I wanted to, first video of the year, of the new year, let's do something we don't normally do and get the bare bones version of it. Now, for some of you, you're going to say none of this is a big deal. And for others, you'd say, oh my gosh, I definitely wouldn't want to do that. It's not for me to tell you which one's better. It really depends on your own personal values and perspective and where you sit comfortably with technology. And also, if you're like me and you got RAM and storage laying around, I mean, why not use it? Why spend money on more RAM and storage when you've got plenty sitting around? On the other hand, if you think doing what I've done is a pain and having to install Windows and the drivers is too much work, well, then you can spend the money and have it already done. Whichever works for you. But we don't often cover the bare bones process. And this one, again, because of its unique design, it's a little bit different. You know, how we get the parts installed, as we've discovered together. All right, let me go full screen over here real quick, and let's get these drivers put on. So I'm going to come over here to Explorer, go to the D drive, and I'm just going to drag it out. All right, so we'll let that go. And while we're waiting, again, it's a slow flash drive. While we're waiting, if there's any questions I might have missed, I wasn't intentionally ignoring you. My eyes were focused elsewhere. But do please repost your question or a comment you wanted me to see now while we're waiting. Because I do love interacting with you guys, and I hate when I miss stuff. Hey, there's more Taunt, renews his membership, now a member 43 months. He says, hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. Happy New Year. Thank you, more Taunt, back at you, my friend. Happy New Year to everyone. Phil Stodd joins us, says Happy New Year. Dennis is like, hang on, folks, Carey's getting out sockets. I guess I missed that one a while back, huh? Mark says you can always edit this down and put it up as a tutorial. It's a lot of work to edit, but I could. I could. But it's a lot of work. Mark mentions if it's bare bones, you have to expose the bones. That is true. That's an interesting observation. All right, so the file copied over. So let me go back over here full screen. And let's extract the double click. Extract all. Extract. That's going to create another folder on the desktop with the files inside. Perfect. I don't know if there's any particular order to installing these. If I look through, does each of these have a setup? Yeah, this one says setup chipset. That's a good place to start. We can just work our way top down. I've seen where MINISFORUM and other manufacturers have numbered these. So there'll be a number before the name of the folder. That would indicate a preference of order. Wow, that happened quick. Okay. Go back and do the next one. We have an install there. That was quick. We'll go to the next one. Boy, I wish there was like an install all. Before I go to the next one, I'm just curious in the device manager, what does that look like right now? Oh, yeah, we're missing a lot. So a cheating way to get over this would be, or to get through this quickly, would be to just hit add drivers and point it to the directory. The downside of that is if there's any audio software, for example, or just software in general, we're not going to get it. But if you wanted to, you could absolutely go this route. It's just possible that any included software won't go. You will get all the drivers though. So if we point it to this folder on the desktop right here and click OK, it'll search through every driver and you'll see it's just adding them all to the device manager. So we don't have to go one by one by one. But I want to remind you that if there is a particular driver, and what comes to mind again is the sound card, that often has software included, you will not get the software. You have to install, go through the setup process. But because we're live and I'm trying to expedite this, when you're at home, you probably go through each one individually just to be on the safe side. But I'm going to just take a shortcut here because I can, and I feel pretty confident. This will allow us to move forward much, much faster doing a live video. We're already a half an hour past our normal show time. And I haven't even started to run any benchmarks or anything on this, but I know it's going to be outrageous. If I right click on the start menu and just look at our system properties, we can verify it's saying our processor and our RAM. That's a video driver going in right now, because Murphy's Law is as soon as I bring up something on the screen, that's when it's going to put the video driver in. But it all comes back in a moment. So yeah, there's our Ultra 9 285. There's our 64 gigs of RAM. There's our Windows 11 Pro 25H2. This is not going to be activated because remember, it wasn't included with the system. If you were to buy the system with storage and RAM installed, you would obviously have an operating system and it would be activated. Now, I'm still seeing some items here that aren't showing. Normally like PCI device, stuff like this, PCI serial port is part of the I/O controller. And if you look in here, there will be like an SMIO or something like that in here, serial I/O. So we may end up having to do this anyway, or it may just need a reboot. So probably before I go and installing more of this, what I probably should do is just do a restart and see if those fill in. So let's just do that now. Let's close this, And our reboot should be relatively quick. I also think since our video driver went in, we went into 4K, which is a little difficult for me to see. So I'm going to drop it back to 1920 by 1080. That's better. And then we'll restart. Once we restart, we'll go back in the device manager and take a look. If we still have a lot of devices in there, or even one device, quite frankly, that has the exclamation mark next to it, then that means I'm not going to know which one it is without individually loading all the drivers. And then without all the drivers loaded, it's not fair to run any tests on it because it's not fully talking to all the hardware effectively, efficiently, or maybe even at all, right? So that's really, really critical. And while I'm waiting, I can go ahead and pull the flash drive out because we've copied the files off of that. And yeah, we'll see where we're at with the device manager. This has a lot of hardware in it. I mean, this thing is a beast. So me taking these little shortcuts certainly works with the smaller mini PCs, more budget-minded, that aren't so fancy. I won't be surprised if we still have items in the device manager that don't have drivers yet. Let's just check. So we'll go to device manager. Yeah, we do have a couple. So basically, rather than trying to research one by one and only putting in the drivers that I realize we're going to have some redundancy now because I've done that, but that doesn't hurt anything. So where were we before? We were on the fourth one here, right? So I'm glad each of these has an install, whether it's a setup or an install, and they're going to go through most of these pretty quickly. It just flashed. That's all it is. That's why I wish they had like a one click to do all this for us, because you got to find the install or the setup, and that sort of flashing, that window that opens and closes real quick, that's just how small the driver is, along with how fast this computer is. The Intel Management Engine, we definitely want to put that in for the best storage performance. And again, that usually has some software that goes along with it. So if you just put the driver in, I mean, it'll work, but if you want to be able to configure anything or look at the status of things, you need the software. And the software and the driver go in together when you do it this way. Only the driver goes in when you do it the way I showed you in the device manager. So it depends what the device is. See, it loaded a lot of things here. And if I hit finish and go back out, and just remember our place, because this is all alphabetized, we stopped at the Intel ME. Let's do the Intel NPU real quick. We'll hit install. It flashed and closed. Let's take a look in the device manager now and see if anything's changed. So as far as I can tell, we have everything complete now. So perhaps that Intel ME was really the missing piece. If we just want to be thorough, we'll go through each one of these, because otherwise we might be selling ourselves short of system performance or reliability by trying to take a shortcut. So at this point, because everything is so different than what I'm accustomed to, and I'm already more than halfway through, I might as well just do them all. Whether or not I need them, I don't know, so why not just play it safe? Now, we did do the serial I/O, so we'll skip that one. It won't hurt to put any of these in twice, by the way. So if you double up on them, it's fine. This Intel video driver, like any other video driver, it's pretty big. If it's an AMD video driver, if it's an NVIDIA video driver, you know those files can be large. So the graphics driver installer is going to be one of the large ones that takes a little bit longer to install. It's not just going to flash and close like those other ones, nor should you expect it to. Now this is saying we've already got this driver, so that's fine. We'll just close it. We don't need it. And then where are we now? The VMD, that's like the RAID driver. Because yeah, you can have a RAID configuration on this with the VMD. We've got the Wi-Fi driver here, which also includes Bluetooth. And then we've got, okay, here's the audio app. And again, if you want control of the audio, well, that's interesting. I didn't see the app install, but this would be the driver, I guess, and the other one would be the, oh, this says this is the whole package. Okay. Easy enough. So with all those drivers put in now, we're going to do one more reboot just to make sure everything takes effect. All these ghosted elements here are because we're not plugged into the network, and that's decided from the installer once you connect to the network to identify the source of your IP address, the country source. Because in some countries, some of that stuff isn't allowed, like in the European Union. And so once you're connected to the internet, based on the region settings of the IP address that has been assigned to you from your internet service provider, that may fill in differently in England than it does in America, using the same installer and the same options. There are these regional laws that Microsoft has to obey, or they pay big fines. So if you're wondering why they do it that way, they don't want to. Microsoft would rather have it all the same for everybody. But different countries have different laws, and Microsoft must abide by them, just like any other company. And so for that reason, Windows has to be configured according not only to the CPU, motherboard, RAM, storage, chipset, video driver, all this customization. And then on top of that, where you're located in the world for what's required and legal versus what's not legal. So there's so much customization on an install. That's why a copy and paste doesn't work to move Windows from one computer to another. All right, so with that, let me grab my network cable. And I have 4 different ports I can plug this into, although granted, 2 of them are SFP+, and I do have adapters if I want to use them. So let's plug in to the top one, which I think is a 10 gig, and we'll watch this bottom globe down here, which will hopefully start to flash. No flash. Oh, there it goes. Just took a minute. I'm too excited and I'm too impatient. There we go. Now this will populate out, right? And then we'll go to the settings and we'll hit Windows Updates. I think what I want to do is carry this onto a part 2 for our testing, because the testing is going to take a good hour or so. We've gotten through the unique part of, hey, this is bare bones, and what do we do differently? We've gotten through the unique part of, hey, there's 4 memory slots. We've never seen that ever on SODIMM RAM. And yes, we verified it does matter which ones you use and what you have to do to get to those 2 that you have to use first, what to expect. In fact, knowing now that there's that film over the chip that's soldered on the board, you really need to take that off before you power this on. You wouldn't want that film to melt onto that chip. It's not going to be pretty, and this is way too expensive to be taking those kind of shortcuts. If you're not prepared to do the little bit of work that I showed you, you definitely don't want a bare bones version of this. But if you saw that as really no big deal, you can save a lot of money and have a little fun. You know, some people really love getting into this. Let me go to my advanced options here just to make a couple changes. I want to turn this on, turn this on. I will reach out to URCDKeys. I'm going to buy a Windows 10 Pro license for this, because the Windows 10 Pro license works exactly the same as an 11 Pro license. You just type it in, it activates for life. So I'll do that later tonight. And I want to check my power settings. I don't want this thing to go to sleep on us. Choose a power plan right down there. And I'm going to pick change plan settings. Just verify that it's okay for the display to go to sleep, but I'd rather it waited a couple hours so it doesn't do that while we're live. But I would never put the computer to sleep. I would either leave it on or turn it off. There's no batteries to save here, so I don't see the point unless it has batteries. Not that you can't. You can do whatever you want. I don't see the logic of that. But regardless, we're good to go. We're going to let it update. And in the meantime, let me get through the process of just wrapping up the rest of today's video by addressing any final comments in the chat. And then we'll come back and pick this up on Sunday and go through some testing. So by then I'll have Windows activated, I'll have all the updates done, I'll have the cover put back on it. I'm leaving everything as it is. I won't be making any changes internally. Everything looks happy. Everything as far as these spare parts will go back in the box, put the box away, get this flash drive erased that has the drivers on it. We're done with that, put it back in the drawer. I'll take care of all that little administrative cleanup stuff off camera and then just save all the testing for Sunday. I think that's going to be the plan. Now, if you have some testing you'd like to see, if I can do it, leave it in the comments below the video in time for Sunday's video. Frank Jimmy says, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Yeah, well, I don't know, depending on your attitude, you might actually prefer this part of this review versus the testing part. Or you might feel exactly the opposite. So we're trying to appeal to everybody and to be thorough, because I think most people, if they buy one of these, especially if it's bare bones, I'm going to save you a lot of time by going through it together, and you're going to know exactly what to expect before you buy it, so that you'll get it done right the first time. You're going to open it up, you're going to remove that film, you're going to put your RAM in that top slot, you're going to understand what has to come out, the way it comes out, how it goes back together. You'll see it's not a big deal, and you're going to do it in 1/10 of the amount of time it took me to do it, because I was figuring it out. We figured it out together. Then you can go ahead and put your Windows on there, get your updates, your drivers, get your activation on there, and you should be able to accomplish this a lot faster than I did. And that's the beauty of this. This is a real first-time experience. It's not a polished, scripted, edited video where everything's always perfect. And through the hesitations and the obstacles I experienced today that you experienced right along with me, we learned together at the same time why it matters. That we're not ritualizing, and we're not saying it, put the RAM here because I said so. You see what happens if we don't put the RAM there, and we know for a fact it matters. It's not a ritual. It's not superstition. Well, I would prefer to go to the back for obvious reasons. It turns out it was a good thing we did open that top up in order to see that film that was over one of the chips, which I thought was weird. Other than that, it is a little bit of a tight fit to get your hands down in there. There may be a way to open this up a little bit more. I'm not sure, just to have better access to it. But I think if you're patient, you'll figure out a way to get your hands in there and get it resolved, get things seated. And if not, then it does look like we have some screws here that maybe the side can come off. It also looks like maybe this whole back can come off, and that would open that area up to work on. It just seems like a lot of teardown just to put a couple memory modules in. So like, just based on principle, I wouldn't want to break it down that far. But again, I'm a bit lazy in that way. I'm trying to get it done quickly, and sometimes that makes it take longer, which is what happened today. Sometimes going slower is faster. Sometimes. You do it your way, I do it my way. And I feel very confident now, if I ever see one of these again, because I learned the way I did, I won't soon forget it. And because you were with me during this process, I hope that that lesson stays with you as well. And it's a great example of reality with the warts and all versus those polished scripted commercials you guys are used to seeing here on YouTube. And I would love to see more live unedited videos and first-time experiences that aren't scripted out. But companies want to pay people to promote their products. And I don't have any problem promoting a product I believe in that I would offer my customers. But I have to evaluate it first. And I'm sharing those evaluations with you live. Mostly content creators won't do that. They do all that off camera, and then they figure it all out, and they come show you what they learned. But you may not really grasp the gravity of the lessons the way they they learned them. And I'm here to show you live why that's important. At least it is to me. and how I would wish for a world in which people were cloning my process here. Carey, somebody's ripping you off. I think that'd be great, because that's the kind of content I want to watch. And yeah, if I see somebody struggling with something and I'm getting impatient, I just fast forward through that part. You know, you don't have to watch it live, because you can go back and watch this video replayed. And if there's a part where I'm trying to find the sockets, just hit the fast forward button. So what? You're not missing anything. And that's the best of both worlds. Just don't fast forward too far and you're like, what just happened? How did he get that to work? I fast forwarded too far. You know what? You can rewind too. Jim Kenny said, I watched both the links you suggested and got my BIOS updated just fine. That's awesome, Jim. Appreciate the update. Lana says, after seeing what you had to do, I'd never be able to do it myself. Well, Lana, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. But I will tell you, there's nothing I did here that required any special skill. It was just paying attention and being patient. Two things I've been short on lately. But if you take a deep breath and you go slow, and it can be a very rewarding experience. And we've always got your back. You know, if there's any issue, you can always email us for any assistance. You can always ask the community. You can jump in our forum 24/7 at CareyHolzman.boards.net. We'll always be able to help you. But if it doesn't sound like anything you'd enjoy, you can just order this with the RAM and storage already in it. They're just not yet available. With the Consumer Electronics Show, MINISFORUM is going to be announcing this at the Consumer Electronics Show. It's going to be one of their showpieces this year. So I wanted to get a little jump start on it, even though I'm not the first. But let's be honest. I mean, I really wanted to jump on it because I can't wait to use it. That's true. I'm really looking forward to using this. So I have to just put it off a couple more days as I wait for Sunday. These are the sacrifices I make for you guys. I hope you appreciate my sacrifice. It's not easy. There's a lot of nights where it's like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, boy, I sure would love to play with that right now. It's like, no, you got to save that. Now, once Sunday show is over, then I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. So there's that little sacrifice, that little investment I make to try and make it worth everybody's while. So there's no cheating and there's no preparing. Everything is unrehearsed, and I don't know what's going to happen any more than the next person. Are the fans going to get loud? Is it going to have any heat-related problems? What kind of Cinebench scores are we going to get? What sort of NVMe speeds are we getting? And yeah, I'll probably look up what the speeds of these NVMe slots are just in the meantime, just to verify. But other than that, I won't do any other. It's going to sit on the bench just like this. No, I take it back. I think I will put the cover back on it and put it back together. But other than that, once I shut it off today, it won't come back on until Sunday. But we'll get all the updates done first. So I still have a little work to do off camera, just to be fully transparent, so that we can get right to the testing on Sunday. In the chat room, Medical Assassin says, Carey, which GPU does the system have? And should the GPU thermal paste be removed and changed? I will tell you, if you're buying a brand new product and you have to change something on it, you have to like fix something, you should return the product and not buy that product. When you're buying something brand new, it should be ready for you to use. I think what's happened is your mind has been poisoned with toxic information online from enthusiasts who go to extreme measures that most of us, it doesn't apply to. So these enthusiasts will take these extreme measures to take a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 video card that's brand new and say, this isn't good enough. Now, first of all, I don't have the attitude that I'm smarter than all the engineers. Second of all, I don't have the time to go fixing problems that don't exist. I'd have to verify there's a problem. Third, if there's a problem, it's going to go back under warranty. I'm not going to void a warranty on a video card because some doofus on YouTube poisoned my mind with information that is more opinion than it is fact. And they're welcome to their opinions, and their opinions are right for them. You know, they might want chocolate chips on their pizza. It's not illegal. It should be. And you might just go, hey, maybe I'm going to try that. And then after you vomited the third time, realize that just because someone made a video about it and how much they loved it doesn't mean you should be listening that what they're saying is anything other than their own opinion and isn't factual. Now, the GPU on this is built into the CPU. So this has an Intel 285 processor. Every Intel 285 processor has the same built-in GPU. There's no option there. Every AMD 5700G has the exact same integrated GPU. So just a simple, you know, if you're curious what the model is, this is not a gaming GPU. No Intel integrated GPUs are very good for gaming compared to AMD. So if you're looking for gaming, you probably want to look towards AMD. Just want to make sure your expectations are met there. Now, when it comes to adding a GPU, you can add a GPU in this machine right into this slot. Whatever GPU you want, as long as it's a low profile GPU, it can be 2 slots wide. If it'll fit, I mean, you do have some power reservations there, but it should be fine if it's low profile anyway. So like a 5060, that'll drop right in here. The low profile 5060 is like $370. But if you're like, well, that's no 5090. Hey, look, if you got $5,000 to drop on a 5090, don't let me get in your way. But this isn't designed for that. It won't fit in here. It's not what it's built to do. So we have to first understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. But if your first thought is, and I just want to be very clear, if your first thought is, I need to fix something brand new, don't buy it. If anything requires you to improve it when it's brand new, send it back, get your money back. If you modify it, you might void any warranty, and you may void your ability to return it. Now, if you're going to a garage sale, and you're like, somebody's selling something on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and it's really cheap, and you don't understand what condition it's in, that you may have to modify it, then modify away. But why would you voluntarily potentially void your warranty and destroy the unit over something that doesn't exist other than an idea on a video you saw somewhere? If you're having any heat-related problems with a GPU, it is not your job on a brand new product for you to explain why. All you do is you reach out to the manufacturer. You say, I just bought this, or, you know, it's under warranty. This is the make and model. This is the game I'm playing. This is the system it's in. And here's what it's doing. And it's running hot. And support may say, hey, there's a BIOS update for that. Or support might say, send it in and let us change the thermal paste for you. Let them do it, because if they break it, they have to replace it. If you break it, it's up to you to replace it. They're not in the, now it's on you. So I think it is profoundly foolish, and I mean profoundly, to take something brand new that you just bought and manipulate any form of repair on it when it's under warranty. That has got to be the most unwise, bad decision I see over and over online from people who can afford to just throw it away and buy another one. Most of us can't. But if you're an enthusiast content creator and you got parts coming in for free, who cares if you break it? And what are the long-term consequences? How often do those enthusiasts come back after 12 months and show you how that same card is running? Because for all you know, they burned that card up and they never told you. Be very, very wary of information you hear online, and don't fix problems you don't have, and don't try and fix something under warranty. Not yourself. That's what you paid for. Why did you pay for it if you're not going to use it? Now I'm going to probably sound like your dad talking, and if you're not in the room, turn the light off. I hear it. I guess people have a lot more money than I do. I just can't afford to pay a company all this money and then turn around and be expected to have to do the company's work that I just paid them to do, which was for a working product. The company's not sending me a working product just based on principle alone. I'm not working on it. What did I pay you for? If the company gives me the product for free, that's a different story. And that's where the problem comes in with the enthusiasts. They get a lot of these products for free. There's no real risk of loss for them. And there's no real long-term consequence updates that you don't hear about them. But you'll know when you do it to yourself. And there's nothing illegal about you making bad decisions and listening to some content creator. There's no consequence for them. The only potential consequence is for you. And my question is it worth it? I'm going to tell you all day that's an easy answer for me. It's absolutely not worth it. Leave it alone or don't buy it. But for you, you can choose differently, but I won't stand behind and encourage that, because I think it's just doesn't make any sense. I have some money here. Can I set it on fire? Well, I suppose you could. Technically, it's illegal to burn U.S. currency, but I mean, if nobody knows, you could go out and take a $100 bill and set it on fire to watch it burn. I can't afford to do that, but maybe you can. I would never, ever do that. Okay, so I think I've made that pretty clear. Andy says he's looking forward to Sunday. Thanks, Andy. Me too, as you can imagine. So we are a community here, and we really appreciate having everybody join us and talk back and forth. And then people that come in here looking for commercials, you're on the wrong channel. You can pretty much watch any enthusiast channel and watch commercials. If that's what you want to see, you're at the wrong channel. That's not on me, that's on you for making a bad decision. So I saw a little nasty comment in the chat room from somebody who doesn't understand what they're watching. This is not an advertisement. This is not a commercial. And we're very much into our community, which involves talking back and forth. If you see that as something not valuable, you don't belong here. Don't get upset at us that you went somewhere with no idea and then complained about it. You just made a bad decision. Move on. You don't need to let us all know you made a bad decision. But for the rest of you, and for others who want to join us in the community, we love having the back and forth. We love talking and communicating live with our viewers. Otherwise, go watch TV if that's what you want. But what we're doing here is very different, and it's live, and it's unfortunately it's not found very often on YouTube. So I hope people who appreciate that will join us in our chat and share in the conversation. We very much do this because nobody else really does it. Very few people do it. And without our community, the video wouldn't even be here, quite frankly. So to complain that the community, there's too much talking, is like, you must be really quiet when you go out with friends for drinks or dinner. You just tell everybody to shut up, because that's the whole point, is socializing. But if you just wanted to go watch a movie, you need to go watch a movie. Seems pretty obvious to me, but never underestimate users on the internet. Some people just don't get it, and it's your fault, by the way. That's what they'll have you believe. So that's too bad. We really miss out for people that don't get it, because we love to have this community grow with other like-minded individuals that see the value in an open community like this, where you have a voice. What a shame to waste it on that. But, to each their own. Andy Kanan's now a member for 29 months. He says, wow, it's been 29 months. Great channel and community, as always. Thank you, Andy. Andy says, the creators on YouTube that reapply paste as a matter of course lose credibility in my eyes. Yeah, it's such a pointless exercise. Unless we're having a diagnostic that requires a thermal paste replacement. I think that's happened 3 times in my career of 35 years. But yet, to watch enthusiasts online, they're just having fun. It doesn't necessarily make any sense financially. It doesn't make any sense performance-wise. Any performance increase on thermal compound is just going to be 2 or 3 degrees, which is the, essential. When you're doing your testing, you have to allow a variance of plus or minus 3 degrees just based on the room temperature changing during the test, negating and wiping out any benefit of the thermal compound benefit. It's the benefits really in maybe fans and dusting and things like that. That's where you see your big gains. And then of course there's the overclocking that people will do, which is just basically, it's like being a fan of Band-Aids, so you voluntarily cut yourself. I don't get it. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I guess it's just not for me. It's up for other people. I don't want to participate in it. There's too much of it, I think. I don't mind that it's out there. What bothers me is how much of it is out there. Because if you don't know any better as a common viewer, you might think that that's what everybody does. And the fact is, it's only an enthusiast activity. Other than that, it doesn't exist in the workplace or in the average home. It just doesn't happen. So, and if you're okay with that, I'm okay with it. But I'm afraid people are misled. Maybe not intentionally, I don't know. But without being very clear and transparent of what the truth is, that these are options and opinions, people are led without such a disclaimer that it's necessary, when in fact it's totally optional, voluntary, and in most cases completely unnecessary and a waste of time and money. But that's my opinion. I can tell you in the workplace, it's just something not done. It just doesn't happen. We don't overclock. We don't put in liquid coolers, except with maybe an exception here or there, but mostly it's not done. We don't change out thermal compound, unless we're changing a cooler, which is almost never done. So it's like two different worlds. But what bothers me, what gets under my skin, is the enthusiast world does not acknowledge the existence of the professional world, whether that's ignorance and they don't know, or it's intentional and it's purposely omitted. I can't tell you what's going on with these content creators, but it's as if they're in a bubble and they're inviting you to join them in their bubble. And they don't mention there are other bubbles that are very different that they might want to explore. They want to keep it all to themselves and make you believe this is the only bubble on the planet. And I find that a little malicious, a little deceptive to your viewers, whether it's on purpose or not. I just think it's deceptive. So to be thorough and to be clear, you should always let your viewers know that what you have are opinions, that what you're doing is strictly an enthusiast community, and that in professional IT work, these things are not done. We're not overclocking. We're not putting liquid coolers on. We're not changing thermal paste. If it is done, it's very, very rare. It's not the normal every day. And if you then search on YouTube for professional IT workers and listen to the repairs they do, it is unlike anything you see from the enthusiasts. It is that different. They're going to be talking about equipment you've never heard of, and they're going to be talking about the complexity of the solutions and what's at stake if they screw it up. So there's a lot more pressure, there's a lot more responsibility, and there are real consequences where you can lose your job. You have to work at a certain pace. You have to fix so many computers a day on average over a period of time. The same as your coworkers. If you're working faster than your coworkers are going to get mad at you for making them look bad. If you work slower than your coworkers, your boss is going to get mad that he's wasting money on you because you're not getting as much done as everybody else. In the enthusiast world, you do whatever the hell you want and consequences be damned. And when you screw up somebody's computer, like the boss's computer, you're probably going to find yourself out of work. And when you're out of work, how are you going to make your bills? How are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to eat? Enthusiasts don't have these problems. This is an enthusiast activity that's done because they have extra time and they have extra money and it's fun. That's great, but it would sure be nice if they would disclose that in every video. This is for fun. This is for entertainment. It is not for education, and it does not represent actual work that anybody that's a professional IT tech would be doing, period, if at all, like very infrequently, if at all. but I just think they don't know. And so therefore, when they pass that on to the viewers don't know. And I'm over here going, there's a whole nother side to this coin. It has another side. Yeah, it's not just a front, it has a back. I'm not here to tell you which side's better. But for you to not be informed that there's another side is a big, it's an injustice. And it really gets under my skin that people are so easily misled, don't do their own research more often than not, and believe everything they're told from a single source, rather than, checking out other sources so that you can gauge for yourself what aligns to your values and what's important to you, rather than being told this is the one way and this is it. And then, you stumble on a channel like mine and I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not how it goes. But that's what he said. Yeah, that was his opinion or her opinion. And this is my opinion. And the difference between us is I earn a living being held accountable to work on other people's equipment, that if I damage it, I'm responsible for and could lose my career if I'm consistently bad at my job. If I can't get it fixed right the first time and I have to go back, it's at my cost. And if I keep going back, they're probably going to take their business somewhere else. So there's a lot at stake with regards to how independent you want to live your life if that's how you're making a living. If you're making a living doing something else, and then you come at home and play with computers and that's what you spend your extra income on, and you make videos about it, I just think people should disclose that to their audience. That's all. And the fact that they don't, and they the enthusiasts far outnumber the working people, it scares me, all the misinformation that's out there. And again, I can't say it's intentional, but it's not illegal. So it's up to you as a viewer to understand what you're watching and who it's coming from and what's at stake for them. All right, let me start updates again on this, and then we're going to wrap it up. I'm pretty sure we're not going to have a license for Windows on here, but let's just check it anyway. Just type activation. See if Windows is activated. No. Yeah. So you're on your own on a bare bones. That's typical. I would be surprised if there was a license in the BIOS, and there isn't. And so, yeah, I mean, it's exactly as advertised. I just wanted to verify. You never know. But again, we get the licenses cheap. Oh, it even says here you need to activate. So again, I'll go on URCDKEYs, VIP-URCDKEYs, and I'm going to buy a Windows 10 Pro license, because throughout 2026, at least until the middle of October, that will work the same as a Windows 11 Pro key, only it's a few dollars less. So why not buy the cheaper one? It activates for life. You only need to activate it once and you're good for life. Even a reinstall of Windows, as long as you choose, like in my case, Windows 11 Pro as a reinstall, it'll automatically reassign that product key through Windows Update because it's assigned to the motherboard. If I change the motherboard, then I have to buy a new license key. All right, and with that, let me go back full screen over here on camera 1. And again, I want to thank our friends over at MINISFORUM for giving us an opportunity to explore this and for having the patience to letting me do this my way, right? Because normally, if you look at any other reviews, they don't show any things that I showed here, like what happens if you put the RAM on the other side and what's the difficulty in getting it apart. Anybody who shows how to take this apart and they do it smoothly did it off camera at least once. I'm telling you, or they're really, really skilled. So going through this discovery process with you is just one of the unique things that I do here that I just wish other YouTube channels would be more honest and transparent about. Because I feel that editing it is kind of lying, and it's controlling the storytelling. That's not how life works. You don't get to edit out parts you don't like. So the question is, when it comes back to professionals versus enthusiasts, is when things go wrong, what does the enthusiast do versus what does the professional do? And the professional will always see it through. There won't be delays and excuses. The professional has to get it done. They have to. Your job is on the line. So when I'm dealing with this live, I have no doubt I'm going to figure it out, because that's what I've been paid to do. My career for 35 years has been figuring it out or not getting paid. But as an enthusiast, if things make me look embarrassed, you know, like, oh, I should have known this, I'm going to take that out and not show the audience. I feel that's deceitful. It's a little bit of lying. It's not exactly honest. And that's okay. It's not illegal. It's just not my cup of tea, if I haven't made that clear enough. Something crazy said, there's so much misinformation, we need to fight it. Well, your best way to fight it is don't watch it. The minute you know, you're watching a video or reading an article that is not giving you full disclosure and full transparency, stop going back to that channel, stop going back to that site. Because if that's their level of journalism, if that's their level of content, and that doesn't meet your requirement, there's plenty of other channels to choose from. And in the market, it'll sort itself out. Somebody's, you know, getting no views. What's the point of them making content? So stop watching it. That's the best thing you can do. You don't have to put anybody down. You don't have to call anybody out. Just ignore it and move on. That's all. It'll take care of itself if enough people do that. And if you're ever confused, like you don't know if what you saw is real or not, feel free to ask me, and I'll give you my opinion based on my work experience. And then you can decide for yourself. Phil Stott said YouTube is entertainment. So many people think it's an online educational institute. I don't know, Phil. I mean, there's plenty of great education on YouTube. There's some wonderful science, technology, engineering, and math dedicated channels from professors, from doctors. The problem is they don't generally generate that viral sensation that, you know, a grilled cheese sandwich or a talking cat get, which of course is going to be entertainment. But make no mistake about it, there's plenty of great college level educational material here on YouTube that is in no way enthusiast, coming from professionals and experts in their industry. They just don't get the attention. Now, when it comes to like the math stuff, there's a guy who's got a channel that got really, really big, a big educational channel here, and primarily for school-age kids to help learn the math basics. And he makes some really interesting videos about misunderstanding mathematical equations. And he explains it, he breaks it all down. And he's an instructor. This is what he does for a living. He's not a math enthusiast. But math is something very easy to verify. So even if you were an enthusiast, you get it right or you get it wrong. But yeah, I wouldn't say YouTube is not an educational platform. I think it very much is. But it's outweighed by the entertainment for sure. There's a lot more entertainment than there is education. But there's a lot of education here. You just have to seek it out. The algorithm doesn't necessarily recommend it. You have to, if you search for it though, you'll see there's a lot of it. Yeah, I wouldn't just dismiss information because it's on YouTube. Again, it depends on who's the information coming from. Is it somebody reputable in an industry, or is it an enthusiast? Is it a guy, you know, playing his video games on streaming them live, or is it a professor talking about, you know, something, some college level discussion? I think stuff Neil deGrasse Tyson does as an astrophysicist is fascinating and accurate. And he does a great job of explaining some things that I've always wondered about. Like, why do the rockets go up on a curve? Why don't they go straight up? Once he explains it and he puts it in plain English, it makes perfect sense. And he's an expert in his industry. who is very well known and respected. That's different from me coming out and explaining it. What do I know? I'm probably just repeating what Neil said. So why not just direct you to Neil and be honest about it? He'll do a better job of it than I will. Yeah. So. Jen Downey said he watches myself, Doug Betts, Greg Salazar, Mike Smith, Tech MSP. Yeah, Jake Tech is very good. Dennis says he's watched several videos from Cornell University on electronics. Well, there you go. I've been watching some of the Adam Ant IT stuff out of England where he's desoldering the BIOS chips and then flashing them. And he's showing, it's edited, but he's showing the entire process. He's not skipping any steps. And he shows the machine before he does it, and then he shows the machine after it does it. And it's, you know, and he's doing this for a living, but I can verify, yeah, all that looks right, and yeah, that did fix it. And he showed every step of the thing, of the process. So that inspires me to say, okay, if I want to desolder a BIOS chip and put it in an adapter, and I can follow those steps. He doesn't have to be the inventor of the BIOS, in other words. He can be somebody who's done it often enough. And again, when he's held accountable, because that's not his equipment. It's not his computer he's fixing. It belongs to somebody else. They're paying him for that job. They're not paying him to play. They're paying him for his experience and his knowledge. And if you do enough of that, you'll, over time, if you're willing to share that with the public, it shouldn't be dismissed. But on the other hand, if you're an enthusiast and you want to share your enthusiasm with other enthusiasts, it should just maybe, there should be some sort of discerning and obvious declaration on the video, whether something is for entertainment purposes only. I wish there was some kind of a disclaimer on it. And maybe someday there will be. But nonetheless, it's still up to you on really figuring out what is the source of this information, and is it worthy of me to accept as truth? Is it worth my time to investigate it, to verify it? Or is it just interesting and it doesn't really matter either way? That's for each of you to decide. Because so long as there's no consequences on behalf of the content creator, then the only consequences are your own. And whatever that cost you in lost time and money was because you made a bad decision. Now, if that ever changes, I'm all for it. Holding those folks accountable for the harm they cause when it happens, that's going to change a lot. But then likely the videos won't be free anymore. It's like malpractice. Frankie B, thank you for the $4 super chat. Good friend Frankie. Any thoughts on RAM price dropping? Well, we're entering into this era where AI companies are expanding right now. And that's going to happen whether you like it or not. They can only expand so far. And during the expansion, they need as much RAM as the manufacturers can make. So there's really no choice we have but to either pay the higher prices or go without. It doesn't really matter what I think about it. You might ask me what I think about the weather, but it won't change the weather. If it's raining outside, I guess I'm not going to go rollerblading outside today. So, you know, bend with the wind, you know, bend like the reed in the wind, go with the flow. There's nothing you can do about it. So how you feel about it doesn't matter. Accepting it and being flexible to work around it is a skill I admire. But complaining about something that you are powerless, have no control over, and are not entitled to, accomplishes nothing. It doesn't really matter if you like it or you don't like it. Do you like the rain? Do you not like the rain? It's still gonna rain. So deal with it. It's not forever. It's not gonna rain forever. The sun will come out again. Just take a breath. Relax. It's gonna be okay. Regardless, you don't have a choice. So embrace it. That's all I'm trying to say. Embrace what's out of your control. And how you feel about it doesn't matter. It really doesn't make a difference in the world. Rupin says, Carey, this unit is more than enough. At CES, MINISFORUM and others are showing the next AMD and Intel chip minis. When do we stop with the latest and the greatest? I find it so difficult at times. Companies need to stay in business. If you have a company, what do you just want to sell one thing one time and then shut up shop? Close the whole thing down? You got to come out with the next thing. You have to. If people invested money in you, and now you're going to cost all these investors money, how do you sleep at night? So there is a drive to do better, to offer more, to get more value, to innovate. And it's up to the consumers to decide at what point they want to involve themselves. You're not obligated to keep up. You're not obligated to constantly have the latest and greatest. That is your choice, and you're putting that on you. But the companies are obligated. They have a financial judiciary duty to their investors and to their employees to continue to innovate and manufacture new products that can reinvigorate sales in order to create more revenue so that the company can not only sustain but continue to grow and expand. And that may mean for an end user, you skip a few generations. That's okay. But you should never feel that you have to, just because MINISFORUM introduced a new model, that suddenly the model you have is insignificant or needs to be replaced. That's on you. That's not on MINISFORUM. So you decide, I'm still good, right? And then the next innovation, I'm still good. And the next innovation, as they continue to innovate and make things better, your machine's getting older and feeling a little longer in the tooth. And the separation grows into such a point where you're like, wow, there's a really big difference in 8 generations from what I have to what's out now. I think I want to buy it. And since everybody's on a different space, hopefully they just constantly generate new revenue every year, more than the year before. That's the idea. If we made this much money last year, let's make a little bit more this year. And if we do, then let's continue and make a little bit more next year. And welcome to business. That's just business 101. And you owe it to your employees and you owe it to your investors. That's it. And the minute you give up, you just screwed everybody. So I wouldn't complain about innovation. Whether or not you choose to participate in it or not, that's your choice. I'm excited to see what's going to be at CES. I hope there's going to be some surprises there that companies have been keeping secret, because otherwise it's going to be a pretty boring year. You know, if there's no new motherboards, there's no new CPUs, if everything's just refreshes, there's no new Wi-Fi or networking, there's not going to be much for RAM or storage because of pricing. Anything that uses RAM or storage is going to go up. The price of cell phones, anything that uses that, price is going to go up. So that's all very depressing, but at the same time, there's probably going to be a lot of innovation and other things that come out that perhaps you wouldn't have given a second look at, that now that you're being sort of forced off of this heroin that is RAM and storage that so much of us suffer from, you're being forced to kind of get sober. And that may open up opportunities to valuing things that you were overlooking before. And I'm hoping we're going to see that and more in 2026. Instead of focusing on the negative, that negative may be the very reason we have this new thing. And it may be a new thing that has been there, but we just haven't noticed it before. So I'm looking forward to what this year has to offer. Because we know on the RAM and storage side, even on the GPU side, things are probably going to be a little disappointing temporarily for the year. On the other hand, that may open up new doors that we've been ignoring. Doors that have always been there that we're not looking at right now. And that will force us to turn our heads and to see something that's always been there that we just didn't realize. So I'm looking forward to that experience. And I think we're going to see that in 2026. I think we're going to see a lot of it. Companies have to get creative and innovative. If you're not able to sell computers, if the price is too high, you know, when prohibition took place in America and these beer manufacturers couldn't manufacture beer, Some of these companies went to changing the manufacturing to ice cream. So Stroh's made Stroh's ice cream. They kept their factory open, they kept their employees working. What an opportunity for some change and forcing people to get out of a bad habit, especially back then when it wasn't uncommon for a man to spend his wages on liquor and not take care of his own family. That's what kind of created all this. The priorities were all screwed up. So it forced them to remove that option. And, you know, maybe then the family could get the food they needed with the money that was otherwise being spent on the alcohol. That was the concept. And then the question is, well, what are all the employees going to do at the factory? Look at what Hershey did during the same era of time when companies were figuring out how to make ends meet. Hershey was making money. See, these are where opportunities are born, where everybody sees depression. It's like you've got to break free of the group think and look at the opportunity that's there. And I'll be sharing that with you as I discover it this year, because there's plenty of things I'm not seeing that have always been there that are now going to draw my attention when we're no longer focused on RAM and storage stuff. It'll be a nice break. It's not forever. It's just a break. And I think we all need it. So trying to look at it from the positive side. It's too easy to grab the negative side. It's just temporary. It'll just like the pandemic. Does it really feel like, I mean, do you even remember it? Most of us, you know, you talk about it and like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Remember how miserable you were for like 2 years? Yeah, it was pretty miserable. Yeah, but you look back on it, it wasn't that bad. In fact, a lot of people have completely forgotten until I bring it up. Oh yeah, I forgot how bad that was. Yeah, but you thought it was the end of the world at the time. It's just like it's raining. It'll clear. Let it rain. You're not going to stop it anyway. Make other plans, just for now. Blue skies are coming back. Enjoy it. Make the best of it. New York Renal MD says that's why the Nemo PC seems like such a good deal. Just the RAM in it alone at 128 gigs is worth it. He says he's future-proof for a few years. I think most people are future-proof for a few years with 32 gigs of RAM. And again, I'm going to blame social media on this nonsense. This idea that more is better is just, it's messed up, man. If I made you some mashed potatoes and you really like those mashed potatoes, you're like, these are the best mashed potatoes I've ever had. Can I have some more? And I bring this giant pot over and I dump it onto your plate and it's this tall and it's this wide. You go, there's no way I can eat that many mashed potatoes. I love them, but there's no way I can eat all of that. Wouldn't you consider that a waste of food and a waste of money to just let it go to waste because you're not eating it? If you have more RAM than you're using, it's the same as not having it. So to feel like you don't have enough, you need to prove to me you don't have enough. Show me a use case scenario that justifies that RAM, and I'll show you you're one person out of 1,000 that can justify it. Most of the other 1,000, they just want it because they're getting brainwashed in media. And if they're told they can't have it, now they want it more than before, and they never had a reason for needing it to begin with. It's really nothing. It's just such a nothing. So it isn't a big deal. Please don't buy into the clickbait. James mentioned he does video editing. Yeah, well, there are some video editors that can be pretty heavy on RAM use. Mine doesn't. I got 32 gigs in my laptop. It's soldered in on a Galaxy Book 4. I do 4K video editing on it, easy peasy. But I'm not using Adobe Premiere and I'm not using DaVinci Resolve. Those are huge programs and way over my head. My edits are relatively simple. I'm not making Hollywood movies over here. And I'm not a level of enthusiast where I'm making these little shorts on TikTok, but I got to use DaVinci Resolve. Give me a break. That's just bad decision making. But again, if that's what somebody wants to do and that's how they want to spend their money, It's not illegal. I can't wrap my head around why you would make things more complex than they needed to be. But if you're doing that kind of video editing, then you're probably making some pretty good money at it, which would justify the cost of the additional equipment needed for that. So either way, it still balances out. Sharon mentions that, you know, some people didn't make it through the pandemic, and this is true, and I wasn't referring to the medical side of the pandemic. I was strictly trying to keep it on point with regards to supply chain, the lack of things like toilet paper and basic essentials and eggs and all this other stuff. And that's all I meant by it, is I was just referring to the idea that somebody can't get RAM, right? Or that RAM is going to be really expensive. The analogy I was trying to use there, I guess it went over your head, because when I talked about the pandemic, you didn't hear me talking about the medical side. I was talking specifically, making an analogy to the supply chain, and I'm sorry that you completely misinterpreted that. But that was clearly not the point I was trying to make, and it's off topic. So while it is sad that some people didn't make it through the pandemic, that was never what that example was about. So I hope that we stay on topic, right? And we understand the intent of the message I'm delivering. It's not as though I'm talking about the wind. And you go, well, that's all well and good until it blows your house down. Okay, you're completely missing the point of the example. I'm just disappointed when people do that. At no point was that ever the message, but somehow that's what you heard, and it just disappoints me that I wasn't heard. What can you do? Andy says he's hopeful that the cost of storage will cause the innovators to improve the efficiency of the storage we have. Good point. Necessity is the mother of invention. So it could be a pretty exciting year. Regardless, you don't have any say in it, so you might as well learn to embrace it. It's just a healthier mental place to be. Everything's good. We'll make the best out of whatever we got. If you're poor and all you have is a tomato and hot water, it'll be the best tomato soup you ever had in your life. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, thanks over to our friends over at MINISFORUM for allowing us to review this our way. And we'll see you back here on Sunday when we run all their tests. A reminder to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEYs, I'll be buying a key there later myself, so we can get this activated, finish the updates, and have it ready for testing on Sunday. Thanks to Mara, of course, for all the work she does with the thumbnails she generates from scratch, all the video descriptions, and she handles a lot of the administration, all of the administration on this channel, which is a lot of work. If you want to reach out with any questions, our email address right here is part of Mara's job, and she loves it, by the way. If you want to email us and ask any questions or have show ideas, we love hearing from you. And reach out. If anything that requires my specific input, Mara makes sure to bring that to my attention. But most of the time, 9 times out of 10, she knows what's going on. She knows the answers to the question. She's very technically competent and can answer most of your questions, unless they're directed specifically to me. And again, she will bring it to my attention if that's the case. So you're always welcome to reach out at any time. We love hearing from you guys. Thank you to all the members. Thank you for the contributions that came in from, of course, our friend Buster, as well as Mr. B508, Charlie Purdy, Mark Gaines, and Nick Caffrey. We thank you so much for supporting us here. And again, all of the members. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again on Sunday. Until next time, bye for now.